Dart to throw for the first time. Wide open. Touchdown, Dayton Wade at Ole Miss. I'd say the script worked.
Welcome to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Play action. Duggan. Again, all kinds of time. Floats one and drops it into Johnston. He's gone. Touchdown. From the medical tent to the end zone for Quentin Johnston.
Sikkim 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
That ball is picked off down the sideline. Touchdown for Trey Clark.
Sikkim 365 Radio is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
For those who just joined us, Adrian Martinez still dealing with a knee issue. Deuce Vaughn running away from the Cowboys. Touchdown!
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
23 years old. Can he find some magic in that right arm that's maybe a little rusty? It's picked off. All the way back to the end zone. Touchdown, Baylor. A.J. McCarty with the 5th interception of the night for the Baylor defense.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Man, I couldn't wait. Could not wait to get to 3 o'clock today, and it is loaded up with 3 different segments to look at yesterday's announcement from the Sports Business Journal on the Big 12 and their TV deal and exactly what it means and their thoughts. And then, yes, of course, there is evidence, more evidence. And in the Big 12, TCU continues to remain unbeaten. Kansas State took the heart and soul away from Oklahoma State. Shocking that it was like that. And then Baylor went into Lubbock and handled things very, very soundly, 45-17. And Oklahoma has just turned the corner. That's who Baylor plays this week after the win up in Ames, Iowa.
Well, Oklahoma State decided to dress up all as ghosts for Halloween on Saturday because Kansas State ran right through them like they weren't even there. That was unbelievable. And another crazy, crazy week in the Big 12. And it wasn't really a crazy week in any other conference. I mean, most everything went, how most people thought it would. The Big 12 just continues to show why it's the deepest and most competitive conference maybe in the country this year because you don't know what's going to happen week to week. Look, Baylor beating Tech is not surprising that they won the game, but surprising that they changed the identity of who they've been in the previous 7 games to go and do it.
Craig, were they the identity we thought they were going to be when we saw this season turning the corner to start back in September?
Yeah, I think that was closer to it. I think that, being able to run the ball pretty much at will and kind of, pave people with that offensive line, that RVO that you were looking for all year long has kind of peaked its head up at times, and it was in full effect on Saturday night. I mean, Richard Reese was at the head of it, but that offensive line did a great job of just kind of dictating things and opening up holes. And, they, as an offense, really controlled the pace of that game from start to finish. And that was one of the bigger parts of why that score turned out the way that it did. The 5 interceptions also played into that. The, success in the run game played into that. But the time of possession and just being able to control the football and then rip it away from Tech every time they had it seemingly, all of that amounted to a blowout that I didn't see coming. I mean, I think that we saw that game playing out more as a close type of shootout contest. That first quarter was, 3-0, and not at all, I think, what was expected. And then, after that first quarter, Baylor just kind of hit their stride and did not really look back outside of a little bit of a scare there in the third quarter. So a very promising effort for the Bears. I mean, if they can be that team over the next month, then they can really do some damage. And, I'm not trying to get too far ahead, but they could find themselves in, maybe knocking on the door to Arlington again. But that's easier said than done. They got to take care of Oklahoma first, which is not a guarantee by any means in Norman, but that was a very promising effort for Baylor, much more like the team that we expected. And for Texas Tech, I think that they've obviously got to go look in the mirror and answer some questions. And I think that, the biggest thing coming out of that game is obviously the quarterback room's got to get some clarity on exactly what they want to do there. Because they were just kind of looking for an answer on Saturday night, even though Baron Morton played okay. I mean, I know he threw picks, but he played okay, especially compared to the other two who just came in and threw a pick right away. But I think that was a game that, Texas Tech gets put in that position, a year or two from now, they'll perform much better. That was a little bit too much for them, too quick, I think, and Baylor was ready for it.
Yeah, the quarterback situation, and when Shuck came in, you could tell it was almost like a pitcher coming back from Tommy John surgery, which he, of course, is coming off an injury and not getting any kind of rehab assignments. And the first thing was a wounded duck, pick six. And Baylor's 5 interceptions, 2 by seniors, Walcott and Milton, 2 by freshmen, and 1 by a sophomore. That's what I noticed in the Tevin Williams interception, which I think was equal opportunity in the end zone. You would think like tie goes to the runner, whatever. The official thought differently. And yes, I understand Tevin had most of the leverage, but I was surprised by that. But in the end, 45-17 was what we saw. I'm not saying Baylor is who they were in Lubbock, because we haven't, it was an incredible, nice, and very impressive win. But let's also get into this, and we'll have Dave Aranda one-on-one a little bit after 4. Kansas State beat the living daylights out of Oklahoma State and made them like it. Remember, they were up 28-10 on TCU, and then TCU rallied from behind to win as they continue to remain unbeaten. But Kansas State looked like a juggernaut with what they did at home against Oklahoma State.
Yeah, they were fantastic from the jump, and Oklahoma State, I think it was, and you could even tell by just the vibe on the sideline from the coaches that they kind of maybe felt that if things went south early for them, they weren't going to be able to claw back, because they have been for the last, and it's not just having to grit through against Texas a week ago. The last few weeks have been all really gritty, tough battles, and they've been fighting through injuries. And then this week, Kansas State was just too ready and ran right through them in every single opportunity.
I think it's that, and I think it's slightly more than that. That's the worst loss of the Mike Gundy era, guys. That's the worst loss of his entire tenure on Saturday.
Yeah, it would be hard to get worse.
And it came as a top 10 team, and it came out of complete nowhere to some extent. We knew about their injuries, the number of injuries, the number of guys out, probably needed a little bit more value given to it. I mean, maybe at least on my end, I didn't think they would necessarily plug and play, but they're missing an awful lot of guys, and it wasn't as simple as just plugging and playing guys and overcoming that. But I think the biggest thing is what Mike Gundy talked about in his postgame, and that's the fact that they apparently practice differently.
Yeah, he said that, yeah.
And he would not dive into exactly what that meant, but one could formulate an argument that he might have been referring to them just basically not practicing at all. If you wanted to, you could make it sound like they just practiced like normal. You can make it sound however you want to, because he didn't give enough details other than saying that they basically did some things differently because they were so banged up, and he was worried about them getting further banged up in practice. And so, again, didn't go any farther than that. Read into it how you will, but they changed some things up, and they did it for the worse. And as he said, that that's a lesson that he's got to learn, and something that he miscalculated. But yeah, whatever they did clearly didn't work. I mean, 48-0, that's an embarrassment. And I mean, that just totally shatters not everything for you, but mostly everything now. It's going to be hard to rebound from that. But yeah, big missed opportunity. And for Kansas State, I mean, you got to play who's in front of you, and K-State had this golden opportunity at home when they were limping in a little bit, and you got a wounded duck right there, go for the kill job, and they did it, and they did it quickly, and they didn't look back, and I was mightily impressed. And now you got to look at them as perhaps setting themselves up for a little rematch with TCU, except for this time they might be a bit healthier than they were the last time around. And I'd be all for seeing that, although there's a lot of things to happen over the next month to get get to that point. But, yeah, mightily impressive by Chris Kleiman and the Cats. Will Howard played his tail off. I mean, so much for, Adrian Martinez being banged up. Will Howard was excellent, and they just dominated that game. That was really impressive.
And they have Texas, who's coming off the off week, along with Kansas this weekend. We'll get into the schedule. We'll look back at more of the evidence. Again, we have 3 segments today on the Big 12 television deal that was also released yesterday by Sports Business Journal. I had a chance to talk with Bob Thompson about an hour ago, and he even said last week that when Brett Yormark told me last week that he did not have not discussed years, he just felt like that it was not imminent. Well, it was. They released it on Sunday.
Apparently,
and he discussed why Sunday was a little bit strange too.
Yeah, apparently they did right after you talked to him.
Yeah, I know. I looked at Brett. I said, "Hey, get this damn thing done," and he went back and did.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised to see that drop on Sunday. I think everybody was surprised to see that drop on Sunday. I'm still not quite sure it dropped then, and I'm curious to know kind of what's next for the Big 12. I mean, there's obviously some particulars to iron out, like so that we know the full meal deal of what, like, people are wondering, like, is there an escalation on the back end? Like, how much your team's making by the end of the contract? How does this affect potential expansion? How does this, affect what they could possibly do to add on to the deal in the future? There's a lot of questions still, despite just getting years and money. Tier 3 rights. I know that's a big question that a lot of people had. So, still sorting through some of that. But, at worst, I will give Brett Yormark, and, it's not just him. It's not like he came in and is leading the way all by himself. He's got a lot of direction, and there's a lot of people that are talking to him as well. But he is the spearhead of it now. He's the figurehead, and he is a guy that they brought in mostly because of, his ingenuity and his sponsorship abilities, but also because of making deals in general and knowing TV networks and how all that kind of works. And so, yeah, kudos to him and others that I'm sure were involved in getting this deal done, getting it done, quicker than imagined, getting it done to where it looks like they're not really going to be falling off too much of it all, even with the departures of Texas and Oklahoma. And obviously there's going to be a large gap still that they've got to try and close, where and when they can. But given where we were 2 summers ago, who's complaining, really?
Think about where they were in 2010, 2012, and then there was even some speculation along the way. We will get deep into that with Dennis Dodd and also Matt Brown, who writes for Extra Points, his thoughts about it, because he even said in an article he wrote yesterday, he thought this would never not happen. He did, he was one of those that thought the Big 12 was on life support. So I'm telling you, and I just said this in the chat room, and a lot of you aren't. And if you aren't, I said, think about where you were if you're a fan of a current Big 12 team, or an incoming fan, which a lot of you came to us and we loved it back a year or so ago, a year and a half ago. Think about where you were in July of 2021 and the fall of 2021, even when USC and UCLA story popped and all that. This doesn't mean it's a world of perfect. It doesn't mean that the money is SEC or Big Ten, but that was unrealistic to think that way. What it does mean, and we'll get analysis of this in Mac Roads tomorrow, is there's stability, pretty good cash, and imagine how much of an increase in revenue for the 4 schools coming in: Brigham Young, University of Houston, Cincinnati, and also UCF. We've got a couple of college football stories we need to get to.
Yeah, real quick. John Carton, UCF over the moon with the fact that they'll be making more than Miami and FSU in 2025.
Yeah, think about how they're feeling. They got to be they have to have a headache over this.
Headache.
The ACC teams.
Oh, okay.
The Miami and Florida State looking at what UCF's about to bring in compared to what they're stuck with right now.
Yeah, and it's great for UCF and Cincinnati and Houston and BYU that they're all going to be making more money, and yeah, that's a big coup for them. I'm curious to see how they're able to use that, knowing what they have been making and now knowing what they will be making. I mean, if they've already put themselves in position to get the Big 12 invite and get onto a slightly bigger platform and more of a national platform than they were getting in the American. I mean, now you add this money into it, and do these schools take off now as a result of that? I think is the fun thing to wonder and to see how much the Big 12's foresight in adding them could really blossom with them now, having more at their disposal in Orlando and in Houston and in Provo and also in Cincinnati. So yeah, that's exciting to see them getting that benefit. And, now what they do with it will be key, but that's huge for those schools, absolutely.
And then a lot of you are asking about the TV deal. I'll read one, respond to it, doing some college football notes. Patrick, does this now mean that it leaves the possibility of the Big 12 to expand? Maybe this has nothing to do with it. It does at least give them that opportunity. I don't see it there, and I hope the Pac-12 can announce theirs at some point and move on as well. But there are still some things out there we're not so sure about. I asked Bob Thompson about that, and we will ask our guest, Dennis Dodd, and also Matt Brown about it too. Auburn looking for a football coach. This is a long time coming. Unfortunately, and I hate to use this term, Brian Harsin has been a dead man walking for a long, long time as far as coaching. He's out. The new AD, John Cohen, is from Mississippi State, getting almost 3 times or 2.5 times the money that the Auburn AD was getting before him. He's from Tuscaloosa. He coached at Kentucky. He's played, and been an AD at Mississippi State. He's an SEC blood, through and through. He is coming in. And Brian Harsin fired before he even walks through the door, and you wonder if that was discussed even before he was officially hired.
Well, I mean, at least they didn't, do the thing where he gets officially hired and go, well, I have to look at all the coaches and all the sports, and whether it's football or it's swimming. I mean, we have to look at everything in this program. That's what we're going to do. No, this hire of the AD and firing of the AD that they had was all about Brian Harsin and football. That's what this was. This has nothing to do with any other program that's going on at Auburn right now. Basketball is rolling great. Everything else is fine. They don't care. The alumni there are not making this AD hire and the next coaching hire based on any other sport. So to just go ahead and get out of the way and let Brian Harsin walk out the door and on to his next job is the smartest thing to do, so you don't have that, BS about like, well, I'll examine everything, knowing that when he was in that interview, it made it clear that he was going to want to make his own football hire, which most ADs do, and the only time they don't is if it's somebody who's normally elevated that's been on the staff with all those coaches, because you want to put your own stamp on it.
Yeah, I mean, this was inevitable. I'm glad we just finally cut to the chase here. And, it took Auburn finding their AD to be able to do it. I don't know the particulars behind the scenes, but I don't really care. I mean, all that matters is that Harsin's out, and now there's a big job that's opened up. So now there's some company for Nebraska, and who else we got out there? Colorado and Arizona State. And I'm probably forgetting 1 or 2 that have opened up, because it's sort of been a while since we walked over to the carousel. It's kind of just been sitting in neutral for a few weeks at this point. But, now it's active once again in a major way. I mean, this is a big job. There are some, drawbacks that I don't think are going to be appealing to everybody. You can throw that SEC money all you want to at people, but given the way this is kind of, gone the last year or so, I'm sure there will be candidates who have a question about, okay, like exactly what kind of circus is this? Or is it calming down, or I'm going to have to worry about these rogue boosts?
I think the money will probably alleviate any of those concerns.
I'm sure it will too, and eliminate a lot of concerns, but you have to at least wonder and ask the question, and that's not going to shy anybody off entirely. I don't mean to make it sound that way at all, but there are some things that I'm sure guys will wonder about, but overall, yeah, it's a huge job in a great spot that's won national titles recently, is capable of winning national titles again, and capable of competing in the hardest division in college football, and they've proven that. So yeah, it's a tough job, but it's a great job so long as everybody kind of minds their P's and Q's, and that's what the new AD needs to ensure, and let the race begin and the search begin.
I don't want to get too much into this because we have Dennis Dodd around the corner, but Michigan State suspended 4 players. I'm not sure if you saw the video in the tunnel. I saw 2 or 3 different angles, plus there are other angles, including a camera that was up in the tunnel that's in a different location with Michigan State, with 2 Michigan players. One of them got kind of put up, it got almost like he was thrown into a dryer, getting pummeled, it seemed like, from every side, and another player that may have had something to do with getting hit as well. So there's this big deal. Michigan State, Michigan, Jim Harbaugh thinks there should be some consequences legally, criminal charges perhaps. Let them figure it all out. We'll be interested to see what is said, but that was an ugly, ugly, ugly scene in Ann Arbor after Michigan just basically took care of Michigan State. My only thing, and this is sarcasm, where the hell was that energy what you used in the tunnel in the game? Not that they weren't playing hard, but my God, that's pretty classless if all of what we've seen is actually what happened, and it looked like it was.
Man, I mean, we saw the video. I mean, I don't know what nuance is to be gleaned from the rest of it, but
Garrett, do you have this right here? Do you have that? Put that up. Craig, you want to say anything about the Michigan State story?
Yeah, I'd like to. I think it's a really ugly look for Michigan State. I think that, I wouldn't say that they weren't competitive. I mean, or infer that they weren't competitive at all in that game. I think they were plenty competitive as far as the energy goes. But, yeah, they probably could have used more on the field than they did in the tunnel by the end of it. They probably could have used that energy up over the course of the game. But I saw one angle, and, there's more to be sorted out, and I don't care enough to sit there and, Zapruder film this thing. This was a 13-7 ball game at halftime, and Michigan was able to pull away. And credit to the Wolverines for being able to do that. They're a very good team, and their matchup with Ohio State's it's round the corner. There's a way to go, but man, that's really shaping up to be quite something. But on the Michigan State side of things, I mean, kudos to them for seemingly acting quickly. Again, we were kind of caught up in our own deal and didn't get to watch this like minute by minute unfold on Saturday, but has seen various angles. In one angle, Kari Crump, one of those who's been named, he's clearly swinging his helmet at a Michigan player. I mean, it's clear as day on camera. So I don't know how you defend that. I don't know how he'll even attempt to. And for the others, like you said, that's for authorities to figure out. But just an ugly look for Mel Tucker and his program. And they got to clean that up, man. There's just no place for that. And Michigan does need to fix their tunnel situation because you're almost begging for it. That's not something I've ever cared about before, but it obviously became a part of the discussion. And, yeah, probably a good idea now at this stage to, with all that Big Ten money, like, get another way for the teams to go to their locker rooms to avoid that in the future, but bad look for Michigan State.
They go this way. They go a lot of times diagonally, which I've always that's just a problem waiting to happen.
Well, yeah, a lot of coaches a lot of teams just have one tunnel in their stadiums,
Sure.
and I think the coaches who are maybe more in tune to what was going on, which I don't know if if Mel Tucker and staff could have pegged some of that coming, but if they just, especially in a Michigan and Michigan State, a rivalry game, I just know. And this is just my experience. I used to watch Bobby Bowden hold his team on the field when Miami or Florida were there just because he didn't want that to happen.
Most do.
And I'll just, let him get in the tunnel. I'm going to give you a little kind of faux rah-rah speech here. Great first half, guys. Da-da-da-da. Let him go.
Yeah.
And then
that's just, to me, that's an accident waiting to happen. Now, this is a picture. Jack Allen, from the ABC affiliate here in Waco's put this up on his Twitter feed. This is the Baylor defensive line. Now, leave it up for a second, Garrett, because there's a story here. Them wearing Halloween masks because we know it was Halloween night in Lubbock. It's a tough loss for Tech and Joey McGuire. They now move on, and they get TCU this week. Baylor has Oklahoma. But the man second from the right is Cole Maxwell. Remember last week we talked a little bit about him being a little upset about not making the traveling squad. I asked Dave Aranda about that.
I don't know that we ever talked about that on the air.
I alluded to it just for, okay. On the second from the left is Jackson Player. He put out something after the win against Kansas about, maybe false beliefs or whatever, the promises. He's there. That's a big win. I asked Dave Aranda specifically about it. He has some great information on his end about any of that in case you ever didn't know.
Well, I mean, a lot of our audience isn't Baylor fans, so put it this way, is there are a couple guys that you just mentioned were barking on social media, like airing their grievance briefly, and then, doing the typical thing of deleting it or whatever right afterwards, or having their account on private. And that's what it was. They barked. Each one of them had like a little throwaway tweet, and, that's what it was. And so, when you're not playing, I guess, to your greatest you're to the best level, and there's a little grumbling going on, and then you got this big game in Texas Tech looming. It almost like makes it even louder than it probably even really was, because you start to wonder about, okay, well, is there chemistry problems now? Is there like disgruntled players? Like, what's going on? So yeah, to see that, I know Cole, for those that didn't hear whatever part of the conversation we had, was upset he wasn't going to be able to travel even though he was hurt, right? You saw the boot on his foot right there. Well, clearly he got to travel, so that got sorted out, and good to see that everybody's bought in and everybody's on the same page, and clearly they were all on the same page on Saturday night. There was no grumbling at all, except for if you were a Texas Tech fan.
I just want to know why the guy all the way on the left dressed up like J.D. Piquel.
Yeah, it looked like it was. Right. All right, when we come back, we're going to hear from Dennis Dodd and his thoughts about the Big 12 deal. Matt Brown from Extra Points, also Dave Aranda on Baylor's win. We'll dig more into the Big 12, not only over the weekend, but also heading into the weekend. Georgia, Tennessee is a game, obviously, we featured throughout the week, and so much more. And this is 365 Sports. PettyClinicLowT.com. Dr. Ken Petty can help you become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and perhaps as you've gotten older, used to be. What happens? When you start to have symptoms, for example, you're lethargic, you don't have the energy you feel like you had or need. Your sex drive is not the same. There are problems there. And then on top of that, you don't sleep as well. Now, there are other things that can contribute to that, but if you get a blood test and your testosterone level is too low, that can be a problem towards what I mentioned, the symptoms. 1 out of every 3 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone. What Dr. Kent Petty can do. Contact him by phone or go online, PettyClinicLowT.com. There's an email as well, and tell him I sent you. If you may have any of those or you feel like it, or you've gotten older, it's not just if you're 50 or 60. It could be when you're 35. He'll line up your blood test. He'll get the results. He's going to take care of that appointment for you. How about that? And then if it's too low, your testosterone levels, he can put you in a program to increase them so you can become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, used to be at PettyClinicLowT.com.
During Jeep Adventure Days, Allen Samuels in Waco is celebrating with an incredible lineup of 2022 models like the Grand Cherokee L, Renegade, Wrangler, and the Wrangler 4xe. These vehicles bring power to plow through any obstacles or the smooth, peaceful ride you'd expect from a Jeep. Jeep SUVs are also known for their design and technology. The Grand Cherokee L even brings you extended seating with a 3rd row. Come see what Allen Samuels can offer you and your family and find the Jeep SUV that fits your lifestyle.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
It's football and tailgate season. If you want product for the grill or smoker, charcoal, seasonings, marinades, sauces, Waco Custom Marketplace is your home to help prep, cook, and enjoy your food. Tailgate must like brisket, tri-tip, fresh-made burgers, sausage, chicken wings, and if you want steaks, call in your order and pick them up. Bacon wrap fillets or any kind of ribeyes. USDA Select Choice and Prime that melt in your mouth. House-made sausage and jerky. Also, Waco Custom Marketplace, a one-stop shop for tailgating, barbecue cook-offs, and family get-togethers, fundraisers with fair prices to you, the customer. A bakery with fresh baked bread and kolaches. There's cold beer, wine, and soft drinks. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. A cut above the rest. Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Dennis Dodge, CBS Sports, joins us on 365 Sports. We have had Dennis on many times, and a lot, of course, since back in July with USC, UCLA, or even last summer with Texas and Oklahoma, the SEC. Dennis, thank you very much for your time. Your thoughts. What does this actually mean, in your opinion, the new TV deal or the reported numbers that you also had in your story?
Yeah, I don't hold back. I think it's a masterstroke by Brett Yormark. He was telling people that this league without Texas and Oklahoma was going to earn more, and by God, he did it. I'm still not quite sure how, but to get more money and maybe get more than $50 million per school means that the existing Big 12 schools, the 8, don't have to readjust their budgets, which I thought they would. I thought, Bob Bowles had told us that the league is losing half its value. For sure it was going to lose some of its value. But no, it actually increased its value. So Iowa State, which is doing a massive facilities upgrade, Kansas, which is planning $300 million worth of that sort of stuff, can just go along and try to raise money instead of patching holes. And I think it showed what those two rights holders, Fox and ESPN, thought of the Big 12. The programming without Texas and Oklahoma was worth showing. And I know this is true. The fact that Baylor and Oklahoma State played for it last year, you've had 4 ranked teams this year. One of them in the playoff conversation, TCU, had a lot to do with it. In other words, this conference could be fine on its own without Texas and OU.
How much does the impending college football playoff also help open executives' eyes to the fact that just because you don't have a top 4 team doesn't mean that this conference isn't good? And this year, like you just said, for the Big 12, is kind of proving that, even though we're not there yet on the expanded playoff.
Right. I mean, I think I just answered that. You're going to have, in most years, you're going to have a team in there. There's going to be 12 spots. There's going to be 6 at large. The Big 12 in most years should have at least one team in there. Given the power of a Baylor, of Oklahoma State, of Kansas State being very competitive and consistent year after year, that it was going to be in there. For the likes of, to be fair, for the likes of Texas and OU, they're going to a conference where you don't necessarily have to win it, and you can get in the playoffs at 9-3 or 10-2. I don't know if that's going to satisfy those fans, but that's the reality of one of the benefits of going to this conference.
Dennis, I think the 4 joining schools, BYU, Houston, UCF, and Cincinnati, already felt pretty good about everything. But you think they feel like they hit the lottery now after seeing this TV deal?
Yeah. Look, they were coming from a position that they were going to see untold riches to begin with. The money they were getting wasn't anywhere near what they were going to get in the Big 12. But for it to be this much, I think has to be huge for those leagues. No, they're absolutely giddy about it. And they were starting from, I'm trying to think what they got. I think $4 million in the Americans, the UCF and Houston and Cincinnati, to go from that to possibly whatever it is, $50 million with an expanded playoff. That's quite a leap.
Dennis, what does this say? Bob Bowlesby came off the canvas back in the fall of last year after Texas, Oklahoma. The Big 12 has been resilient for the last 12 years with departures 3 different times. But what does this say about Brett Yormark, that he came in, said this was going to happen, and he actually did it?
Yeah, I mean, look, the credibility is through the roof. He was telling people this. He was saying it out loud. He's being quoted as saying we're going to make more. And then I think it was John Oran from Sports Business Journal last week put that $400 million figure out there that I subsequently was able to determine was accurate. Is what they were going to get. Just floored me. And then they ended up, the final figure was right there, $380 million. If you add an expanded playoff, it probably does come to $400 million per year. But they were able to get that. So this guy, what I've been able to, when you guys have talked to him, what I've been able to, I guess, just determine about him is that not only is he a wheeler dealer, New York guy, okay, but something I didn't know about him, he knows everybody in the industry, and everybody knows him. So when he walked into the room with Fox and ESPN, he's done business with them before. He's run the Barclays Center. He's run the Brooklyn Nets. He's been to Vegas. He's done all this stuff around New York, ran the Nets. So he had more experience in this space than I thought. He was very involved with the people that run Endeavor in New York, which is the Big 12 media consultant. So that was a huge plus. And no one was even thinking about the fact that everyone was talking about the Pac-12. Okay, they're in their exclusive negotiating window. Well, the Big 12 leapfrogged them to get their deal done. And what's going to be left for the Pac-12? They may get the same or more money, but I think it's more for them. It's more about when are they going to play their games, because not only are they going to be going head to head in those exclusive windows with the SEC and the Big Ten, but now the Big 12 is going to be in some of those games. When are they going to play their games where people can see them the most? I think they're going to be heavily, they're going to be heavy on streaming, for better or worse. A lot of people are betting streaming on the come, and it's going to hit someday. We're all going to be watching our shows and cable shows and sporting events on streaming someday soon. It's probably going to cost just as much as cable. That's another discussion, but it hasn't yet. And I got to think those 80 coaches, administrators in the Pac-12 are pulling their hair out in terms of visibility alone, in terms of recruiting alone, because only 85% of the country has at least one streaming service. That's a very low number. And I don't know what the number is, but the entire country, like Morgantown in the Big 12, last I checked, wasn't even wired for broadband where you could get streaming. So that's huge. And if that's the majority of what the Pac-12 has going forward, that's a problem.
So, Dennis, how do you think that they, as individual institutions, react to it, especially ones that might be more attractive for expansion in other leagues?
Well, my first question is, does the Big 12, are they going to have a granted right? I think they are. I think that's the next question to be answered when they go and do this. I don't think there's any question when you do a deal like this, everybody's in. But they have to sign the papers. That's not the case in the Pac-12. If they did, they'd have a deal done. They want to keep their options open. And what does that mean? I will tell you this, that the rights holders do not want expansion. That doesn't mean that they would, that the Big 12 wouldn't do anything. But they don't want it. They want to stay. They are interested in cost certainty. They're basically interested in certainty, period. Okay, we get this many games at these times and these windows. They don't want to have to figure this out all over again, because from the beginning, I've been told that any combination of the Pac-12 and Big 12 is basically the same number. Now, we were also told the Big 12 would take a huge cut in this next media rights deal. So maybe Brett Yormark has figured something out where adding 2 or 4 Pac-12 teams gets them more money. I don't know.
Dennis, this is a different subject, but we did see Auburn finally make the move. Brian Harsin is out. They hired the new AD already for Mississippi State. Your thoughts on that finally coming to the end of the road for Harsin and what that means now for Auburn moving forward in your eyes?
Well, not finally. He lasted barely a year and a half.
Well, true, yeah.
He's just been hung out to dry for it.
Right.
Since about February when they had that trumped-up investigation. I feel sorry for the guy. I think he's a good coach. But it looks like it's going to be a Lane Kiffin right of first refusal thing, then maybe a Hugh Freeze, something like that. I know Hugh Freeze would call there on broken glass to be back in the big time again. But I think, Lane Kiffin has a decision to make. He's going to get a huge raise and probably an extension of years wherever he goes. Does Jimmy Sexton, his agent, leverage that for him to stay at Ole Miss if he wants to stay there? Or does he get, the same thing at Auburn, which has more resources, but is a fractured at times place with lots of medleys? Does he want to get involved in that? So until the Lane thing resolves itself, I think it's his to lose.
Dennis, your thoughts on what you saw with Kansas State beating the living soul out of Oklahoma State?
Yeah. God, that came out of nowhere, didn't it? Not that Kansas State won. They were favored. Everybody said it was a big upset. No, it wasn't an upset. Kansas State was favored by 2.5. But something we hadn't seen out of Chris Kleiman's team for the most part, just a total shutdown and dominance of an opponent, of a conference opponent who was on equal plane, was amazing to me. With a backup quarterback, Will Howard. Chris Kleiman is just, I'll tell you what, he's exactly what they needed after Bill Snyder. He's delivered for the most part. Kansas State's in the running for, look, not only the Big 12, but, maybe a New Year's Day Bowl after that, maybe the league title. I thought it was one of the biggest wins in Kansas State history, and I've been around since Bill Snyder went into his office with only 3 to 4 walls erected at the Veneer Complex in Manhattan. But to do that to a top 10 ranked opponent was amazing.
Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports, has been all over the TV deal. Dennis, do you feel like in the end, though, all of the speculation of a Super 2 conference and now the Big 12 is stabilized, whatever the ACC eventually does, the Pac-12, you hope that they get something that's healthy for them, that in the end it's all going to be pretty much what it was before, just money, more money for the SEC and Big 10 or not?
Well, I think that's what will define the SEC is the same as it was before. Those conferences, those commissioners alone get in the room and decide what the revenue is in the expanded playoff. Who's to keep, Greg Sankey and Kevin Warren from saying, all right, we're going to take half of this. The rest of you can divide everything up more. So I think it's going to be something like that. It will be a number that is agreed upon that keeps them out of court, out of antitrust court. But they will get right up to that line and say, because the number right now is about $1.6 billion for a 12-team playoff annually. Let's say they take half. And because of, this is why they've done this. They've got the best name brands in the country in those 2 leagues, in those 32 spots. They split $800 million, and the other 8 conferences split the other 800, with maybe the ACC, the Pac-12, and Big 12 getting the lion's share of that. But it's going to be really interesting because it's not going to be like it is now where the Power 5 each get an equal share, and then the group of 5 split 22%. I think that's going to change significantly. Then the question becomes, what does that mean in recruiting, in ability to compete, ability to hire coaches, all that.
Dennis, one thing for clarification, with the number that yesterday came out and also in your story, if you add that and then all the other, like the college football playoff money, whatever that number is going to be, men's basketball tournament units, whatever that's going to be, bowl games as well, included in that number yesterday is Tier 3. Is it really going to be around 50 to 55 million for each Big 12 team, you think?
That's what Big 12 schools believe, because the 380 million divided by 12, that's called an AAV, average annual value, is 31.6 million. Okay. You add in what is now the college football playoff revenue, bowl revenue, NCAA tournament revenue. The Big 12 teams are getting about 16 million a year on average per school. That brings you right up to 47 million. I think with an expanded plan, and I just told you what the numbers are going to be for that, the increase in that payout is easily going to push you over 50 million. So, yeah, I do think that. And the Big 12 schools think that, and they're very, very happy.
Thank you, Dennis. Appreciate your time as always. Great stuff yesterday, and also covering what you do. Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports, with us here on 365 Sports. We'll have Matt Brown extra points here in a moment.
Yeah, I think the part about, well, a lot of that was interesting, but, the part about the playoff split, my only question with that is, I don't have any doubts that the SEC will have 3 teams in there at minimum every year. I mean, we've seen kind of how that's worked out. But if you're the Big Ten, what if you don't have but a couple of teams? Are you still going to be saying well, no, we still get one half of this, but yeah, you only have Ohio State and Michigan in there. So why do you get, that part to me, that's going to need some clear.
Maybe they should do units like they do in the men's basketball tournament.
Maybe, because that doesn't make a lot of sense to just say you automatically get half of half or whatever the number would be, but yet Ohio State's the only team in the playoff for you. That, and I know that in normal years they would have more than just one, but if you look at that conference, who's team 3 and 4? Like in the SEC, you can say, okay, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, boom, there's 3. Now you could even add maybe a 4th or whoever.
Like Ole Miss.
Or Ole Miss or something, right? Maybe they get in there at the back end.
LSU's possibly.
Or LSU. But like on the Big Ten side of it, like are we throwing Illinois in this thing? Like what are we who's going to be team 3 and 4 that you feel like you're deserving of the same chunk of pie that, you know, the SEC's getting if they have 3 or 4 teams in there? That's something that I know is way down the road, but already I'm going, okay, that doesn't seem like it's on the up and up, really.
That's kind of how some conferences have never been, you know, trustworthy as far as fragile, because you give somebody else more. And again, that's kind of the negotiated. If you get it, great. If you're going to mention down the road, then that could be perhaps it's Ohio State, Michigan, and USC. We don't know.
I forgot about USC, yeah.
All right, when we come back, another view of all of this. Matt Brown, Extra Points, wrote a column about this, and he was like maybe a lot of you that thought maybe a year and a half or so ago that the Big 12 was a sinking ship. His thoughts today, that doesn't mean everything that was announced yesterday is all, you know, cream and ice cream, whatever else you want to talk about, but that's next. Matt Brown, Extra Points on 365 Sports. Ideal MRI in the Central Texas marketplace. I had someone tell me the other day that they were really, really hurting. They had a shoulder problem. In fact, they're having 2 different shoulder surgeries. Plays at a country club locally that's being shut down, Ridgewood. And so I said, where are you going to play? And there's 2 or 3 options, not the greatest of options, but there's a nice one in what is Bear Ridge and a couple other places, Cottonwood. He said, you know what? I'm going to take a chance. I've needed shoulder surgery now for a long time, and I'm going to get that done, in fact, this next year, because he can't play at his own golf course. It's a country club. So he's going to Ideal MRI. He told me that. He's going to get his MRIs to just make sure everything that he thought 3 or 4 years ago is the same or even worse because of the pain in his shoulders. I appreciate that, because Ideal MRI is a great location for you wherever you might be. Worth the drive, $497 or less every single MRI, and maybe less, and they'll help you with the insurance. Great, great machine to be in. It's idealmri.com.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year. It's football season. And BK Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football teams in Texas, right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, led by our leading rusher, the F-150, 45 years in a row. Lock in your best price and rate today by custom ordering your new F-150 at BK Ford. Simple, easy, trusted. Experience better at Bird Colgan Ford.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and 2-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Howdy, Chet Garner here, professional guide, searching for bears in the wild. But not just any bears, oh no, a particular kind. With hundreds of thousands roaming freely in the wild, yet still hard to spot unless you know the signs. There they are, Baylor bears. If you're a bear enthusiast or even a bear yourself, join me and let's find some bears in the wild.
Join the expedition at baylor.edu/alumni.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like First Free Checking, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sikkim 365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Matt Brown, Extra Points, wrote a column yesterday on the Big 12 new television deal. He and I spoke on the phone for a little bit, and he said he'd come on and join us to give us his perspective so we could have different eyeballs. Bob Thompson, 430, who last week thought, based on Brett Yormark's comments to me last week, that he didn't think, if they hadn't been talking years, that anything was imminent. And then Sunday happened. Matt, thank you for your time. Great to have you as a part of the show, at Matt Brown EP on Twitter. Your thoughts about what does this all mean, in your opinion, for the Big 12?
Sure. Well, first, thanks for having me on here. I appreciate you having me on. I think, like we had talked about here before, if I am a fan of a Big 12 institution, I look at this news and take an enormous sigh of relief. This is not necessarily completely transformational money, like maybe what the Big Ten or the SEC are getting, but it's certainly enough revenue to ensure that any Big 12 institution is capable of competing at the highest level, whatever that looks like, over the next couple of years. We're heading into an era of enormous transformational change here in college athletics. We don't know whether there's going to be some kind of power conference breakaway. We don't know if we're moving towards out-and-out professionalization, but no matter what happens, if you're a fan of Oklahoma State or Kansas State or Texas Tech or Baylor, I think you can feel good that your institution is not going to be resourced enough to participate, which, again, if we look and think, you guys know this better than anybody, we've been lurching from one seeming catastrophe to another for this conference over the last 2 years. To come in there and beat some of those expectations based on what we thought was possible a year ago, I think is really significant. And it's especially significant that you get to do all of this if you're a consumer and not have to worry about signing up for 19 different pay services. Your stuff's going to be on ESPN, ESPN Plus, and Fox. You only have one password to remember. I think all things considered, that's pretty good.
Yeah, the one password thing is starting to get bigger and bigger, Matt, as these things get more and more proliferated. One of the things I noticed you mentioned in your newsletter this week was that, is this bad news for the Pac-12? Not necessarily. There's been this kind of measuring contest between the fans of the two leagues, but if you are a fan of the Pac-12, this isn't necessarily bad news, is it?
I don't look at it that way. To the best that I've been able to pick up now, right? I've talked to a couple of TV people. I've got, text out to a bunch of other ADs. My best understanding is that, last week, the two most likely major television partners for the Pac-12 were ESPN and Amazon. And today, the two most likely major television partners for the Pac-12 are ESPN and Amazon. I don't think that has fundamentally changed. And, whether the Pac-12 survives or what happens with the final valuation of this deal ultimately depends more on the Big Ten than it does Amazon, than it does the Big 12, than it does anything that any conference office out in the West is going to be able to do. I don't look at this as something that is a threat or a yardstick that has to be surpassed. I don't think it's changed the fundamental nature of the conversation.
Matt, was there anything about this deal that raised your eyebrows most? I know for some it might be the length of the contract and the fact that they can get back to the table, the fact that they're on, like you mentioned, ESPN and Fox. Was there anything in particular that stood out to you?
I think one thing that I wasn't completely expecting, and I think could become more significant than maybe some fans appreciate is the fact that there's now going to be significant basketball inventory across the Fox family of networks, across the Fox flagship, across FS1. And that's important because unlike ESPN and unlike NBC and unlike CBS, Fox doesn't have a streaming partner to stick unlimited sports inventory onto. That's why when the Fox did their major deal here with the Big Ten, that extra streaming inventory goes to Peacock, it goes to NBC, it goes to other platforms. So I don't think that's a bad thing for a Big 12 fan. Certainly Big 12 basketball is an outstanding product. There's no bad teams in this league. I can see why it would be appealing. The question mark to me is what happens with the Big East, which is also already one of Fox's main college basketball partners. Now you've just signed you've committed even more to Big 10 inventory. You're now bringing in Big 12 basketball inventory, and you don't have 3 other channels to park stuff like ESPN does. So if I was in the Big East offices, so if I was an AD at St. John's or Marquette or Creighton, I'm not saying I'm having an out-and-out panic attack or anything, but I would be a little bit concerned about how Fox values my property moving past 2024, seeing as that they don't have unlimited space and they just signed 2 other really big leagues. They're going to be airing a lot of Central Time Zone inventory.
What are your reactions now? Jamie Pollard, and I saw in your story, and we've had Jamie on this show because we're pretty thick with the Big 12, but mentioned back that the Big 12 existed because of Texas and Oklahoma, and he's right, because they were the 2 dogs. And as you mentioned, now the Big 12's moving on without them and seem to be pretty stable. What do you think the strength now is for someone like you mentioned, Kansas State or Iowa State, and what this means to them?
Sure. There's a couple of, I think, business takeaways that you can take from this, right? One thing that maybe if we had a time machine and we sat down with Jamie in 2016, certainly we sat in my office, I don't know if you could fully appreciate how strong the demand for live sports broadcasting content was going to be, even as cord cutting has moved forward. There's simply nothing else right now that is TiVo proof. And even as the audience shrinks, the live sports ability to draw an audience has become even more important. And so, I wrote some stories. I think a lot of other smart reporters, over the last decade, wrote some stories about how there might be a bubble for media rights. We're not at that point yet, which shows that things that, hey, in 2016, you thought maybe this wasn't going to be as valuable with a good sales package and some good partners. It is. So you can look at this now, and what I think is going to be an interesting part of how this league decides to brand itself moving forward, right, is, outside of, without a Texas, without an Oklahoma, the selling point is about parity, right? This idea that every single football game, every single basketball game, every single bit of competition matters. And that's something that I think this league has tried to use as part of its branding before. I don't know how well it stuck. It's stuck. You've got a different ad team now, some different consultants. I would imagine that's going to be part of the pitch. And part of the pitch to make this a relevant league, not just in Big 12 country, but in places like Los Angeles and in New York City, where there's not a team, there's not a gigantic alumni base to sell that level of competition.
Matt, you mentioned about having one password. I want to go back to that a little bit.
Yeah.
And live sports. Live sports is what's maybe protecting the cable model as it used to be, right? Because if I'm not a sports fan and I just want to watch Game of Thrones or I want to watch something else, I can go to my app that's on, and then I can go to the next one that the next show I watch is on, and I don't care. It doesn't matter. I watch it on my time. But if I'm going to watch flip through 3 football games at once, I really gonna hate it if I have to go to the ESPN app, Peacock, and to Fox or Paramount to get all these different games across the apps, or when I could just go on my television and hit last 4 and watch all of them just with one click of a button.
I think you're exactly right. And that's especially true, I think, for college football. And there's, as a generation rises here, that when they're at home, they're often watching with multiple screens, right? You're having a football game on, you might have Twitter open in another tab, you might have something else. And if you're streaming, not only is it a pain in the butt to shift between different apps, but you're often 2 or 3 plays behind what you might be relative to cable. And I think lots of people will watch a game streaming and realize like, oh, okay, the game got tipped off Twitter, or the game got tipped from somebody else, tweeting, play-by-play. The experience of watching Game of Thrones, or some other, television drama, whether you're hooked up to cable or watching it on Netflix or something, I don't think it's significantly different. That might not have been the case in 2015, but it's the case now. But that gap hasn't really been closed with live sports yet, especially And this is another thing to think about, I think, within the Big 12 footprint. We still have a lot of states where not everybody has access to really affordable, high-speed internet, and where your experience for streaming might become much worse, where cable then becomes a safer option with reaching still a larger potential audience.
Matt, this is a different topic, but I know you've been discussing it, and I think everybody in college football has been discussing it today. Auburn making the move with Brian Harsin now out, new AD hired. You've I'm sure seen all the talk about how good this job is or isn't or whatever, but what was your initial thoughts, or what are your initial thoughts on Auburn's vacancy now?
Yeah, Auburn is such a fascinating place to me, I think, right? Like it's one of those jobs. I think Louisville is one of these markets too, where it seems like everything is constantly happening all of the time. I think if you were an Auburn beat writer, you haven't had a normal week in like 2.5 years.
Right.
And some of that is the subject of the coaches you brought in. Some of that is because of the very lively and active booster culture you have there and the high expectations and everything else that comes with it. You know, I look at this job, and on one hand, it's very appealing for a coach because you can win a national championship at Auburn. You can recruit at a blue chip ratio at Auburn. You have access to a lot of elite talent, not just in Alabama, but in Georgia and throughout the Southeast. And you're going to have access to the kind of financial resources that you need to be successful. If you're the Auburn head football coach, you have generational wealth, right? The challenge, of course, is you might have that generational wealth because you've been canned after 2.5 years. The expectations are very high, and it's a place where there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. And when I look at many of these high-level programs over the last decade or so, places like Texas, places like until this year USC, places like until this year Tennessee or Miami, places that have every level of baseline advantage that you could possibly expect. It's not an accident why they haven't been successful. And part of that is for things that have nothing to do with what's going on the field. It's not a job where people typically are able to stay for a long time and enjoy a lot of success. So I'm not sure who the best person would be to thrive in that kind of environment. It's a place where I could see it. You know, if you bring in Deion Sanders, you bring in Lane Kiffin, maybe you win a national title in year 3. Maybe you get a congressional investigation in year 3. Like anything is possible with Auburn, which is great if you're in the content business like we are.
Matt, a publisher of Extra Points or at Extra Points. Again, I mentioned at Matt Brown EP on Twitter. Has been with us before and also here again with us on 365 Sports. Thanks for your time, my friend. We appreciate it.
Hey, it's my pleasure, gentlemen. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yes, sir. You too. At Matt Brown EP. Wrote an article, and I read it, and there was, of course, a few others that wrote articles. Bob Thompson of Fox Sports, former president, who did say last week he didn't think anything was imminent because of the lack of years being discussed by Britt Yormark to me last week. He'll join us, and I asked us my first question, what happened? 5 quick thoughts about the Big 12's new deal from his article, Matt Brown, in Extra Points.
Yeah, Matt does a newsletter that covers a wide-ranging number of topics in college athletics, a lot of college football, a lot of the business of college football type of stuff. So, yeah, you can go sign up for his newsletter if you are somebody who finds that kind of thing right up your alley. But, yeah, it was good to see his thoughts, and everybody's kind of reacting. Like for me, I don't go to Twitter so much because I know we got this show to talk about most of it, but it was interesting to see kind of all of the reactions across the country. And I'd say that if you're a Big 12 fan, outside of maybe some trolling from the West Coast, then you saw nothing but high praise for Brett Yormark and for the conference and for this deal. And yeah, there are still some questions like exactly what are the figures, exactly when are they those figures, and exactly how does this work, with the expanded college football playoff and tier 3 rights and all of those types of things. But overall, again, given where they were a couple summers ago to where they are now, the fact that they're even close to scraping the surface or perhaps even moving past that is pretty remarkable. It really is.
Well, and look, you've got a TV deal, a media rights deal that they say is going to pay you close to 50, if not maybe a little more than $50 million a year, which is where they wanted to be. And with the college football playoff expanding, you have an opportunity now to get what the SEC has, which is national championships in football more often than you were getting them.
You have a better chance to.
You have a better chance to get them. So now you have a better chance to do that. So if they can manage to do that a couple times, then the value, especially if, say, Oklahoma State wins one and Baylor wins one, or Kansas State wins one and UCF,
let's just mention the team that's a top.
Yeah, say TCU wins one. Okay, then you've got the same thing that made the SEC attractive was it wasn't just Alabama. It was, a bunch of different teams taking turns winning them. And that will then make you like them or similar, and you can make that pitch again.
And then again, the same teams might win the next 10. But at least we'll have a little bit of new blood involved.
Yeah, I mean, Kansas State or TCU is going to have to go through probably Tennessee and Oregon, and then Georgia to win a title. And the odds of that aren't great, but the odds of even getting the playoff right now aren't great. So at least they have an opportunity to be able to do that. And shoot, even if you don't beat all three, beating one or two of them would be a hell of a story. And that's the thing that everybody seems to just completely pushed to the wayside when they talk about the expanded playoffs going to ruin college football and all this. Is I just don't think that they look at it from the standpoint of those schools. They look at it from the Alabama standpoint because that's just what people are inclined to do because that's where the most fans are and that's really what they are motivated towards. We're not sitting here we're sitting here talking about all college football, but we're not trying to just grab all the Tennessee fans and the Alabama fans. And you know what I'm saying? We're trying to cover as many bases as we can, but when your mindset is slanted towards just those big schools, you may not be able to see why just making the playoff is super valuable to Kansas State. Even if they don't win it, even if they go 0-1, it's still super valuable. But if you're too high up in the clouds, you don't see that. I think a lot of people miss out on that because they just get beat by so-and-so. That's not the point. The point is just the opportunity is what's important and can boost that brand. It's not national championship or bust for everybody, and it's either just being ignorant or it's just I don't think quite wrapping their heads around that for those who think that it's all about just it's title or bust, and if you're it's not even about making it. No, it is about making it. It absolutely is about making it. Now, having said that, I wanted to clarify.
You can tell your recruits we're playing in the college football playoff.
There's a million
whether
different
there's 2 or 20 teams.
Exactly. There's fundraising. You mean to tell me fundraising is not going to increase if you make the playoff and all of a sudden you're matched up with Georgia, in the first round, and you might get your head kicked in, but the fact that you're in that spot and you're close enough, your boosters are probably going to want to pony up to get you over that edge as best they can. So spare me it doesn't matter making the playoff if you're just going to get your tail kicked. And it's easy to say that when we don't have to watch the game. What are you worried about? That perhaps they might win that game, and then what does that do? But if you don't ever even open the door to them, then sure, it's never going to change. So I wanted to follow up real quick. Sorry, go ahead, Paul, I guess.
No, just on your point, it's a nice sales pitch to make is, look, we just played Georgia in this playoff game. We lost. You know why we lost? Because they've got this and we don't. We need this. Thank you, rich guy.
Or thank you, recruit. Or but it's absolutely a better sales pitch. Now, I wanted to follow up on what I was saying about the Pac-12 and the SEC taking a chunk, potentially. And this is all potential. We don't know anything, but we're just going back to Dennis Dodd's comments. Right now, the way it's set up, and this would obviously change, the SEC would have 4 teams in the playoff of the 12. The Big Ten would have 4 if you count the LA schools.
Are you including the group of 5 who's going to have somebody?
No,
because that takes away.
Yeah, you're right. Tulane would take a spot, so somebody would have a spot taken. It would probably be Utah at number 12. So the Pac-12 would have one less. But if you take the LA schools, put them in the Big Ten already, that would technically give the Big Ten 4. So in that scenario, you could see it. But they're not going to be set up that same way when they're eventually in the Big Ten. So, Illinois, Penn State are knocking on the door. So I could see the Big Ten having a handful of the playoff schools. But on any given year where they're not where Illinois is not thriving and Penn State's not knocking on the door at the same time, and both LA schools aren't necessarily top 10-ish, I don't know how you got to show me why you deserve a quarter of a half of whatever. It's not just based on your name brand. That's going to have to be sorted out. And so I'm curious about that. But in this setup right now, the Big Ten would have a lot of rights, just like the SEC, to say, we're deserving of a big chunk.
But
of
if Pac-12's having a little surge with what they have, Oregon, USC, UCLA.
And there's a month left.
Yeah, and there's a month left.
But if you do that, though, you're going to run the risk of, okay, so you're pretty much planning that's going to be the case, right? So as soon as it isn't, right? Say the Big 12 gets 4 teams in, the Pac-12 gets 3, and the Big 10 sitting there with 2, and maybe the SEC is a down year with 3. Then they're going to be like, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah,
hold on. This was stupid. Yeah,
they'll have to sort that out. It's not a major deal right now, obviously, but just assuming that'll be the case, that the Big 10 will just be deserving of that, or even the SEC. Yeah, I think we gotta negotiate a little bit more on that front.
We have to also take a break because we have Dave Aranda coming up, and then former Fox Sports president Bob Thompson, his thoughts on it, because a lot of you have said, hey, I thought Bob Thompson. Well, I asked him about Well, wait a minute. You thought it wasn't imminent. And, hey, listen, he was only listening to what Brett Yormark was saying. Cadillac Williams, the interim football coach at Auburn, former pretty damn good player, had nearly 4,000 yards when he was at Auburn. You know how long he's been coaching college football at the Division I level?
Not long.
Since 2019. He's been a graduate assistant at West Georgia. He was a running backs coach at IMG Academy. He was with the Birmingham Iron for 1 year, and now he is running at least the rest of the year, the interim coach at Auburn. A lot of things to get to. Arlo, how about this, guys? Arlo was really excited about Texas Tech and football and running the table. I love your passion. Obviously, you came back in today. You didn't have to. Arlo said this to me on Thanks, Smokey Jr. I saw your comments and remarks after the game. You were so kind and gentle to Tech, like a Western where a friend holds his dying friend's head as he slips away. Arlo, great to have you back. All right.
There'll be better days for sure.
Dave Aranda, Bob Thompson, Tim Brando at 5. This is 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace is your tailgate product and what you need when it comes to other necessities. Baylor, of course, is on the road at Oklahoma and Norman this Saturday. But back-to-back, they have home games. Kansas State will be next on November the 12th. It's an evening game. Great time, 6 o'clock for tailgating throughout the entire day and even after the game. So that's coming up. Waco Custom Marketplace with tri-tip and brisket and sausage and wings, what you need, plus seasonings, sauces, and, of course, charcoal and pellet fuel. If you have watched any of Blake Blackmar's videos, he does our pregame show. What he does and the recipes he puts together are phenomenal, and it makes you want to go right out there and enjoy whatever food you're going to eat or cook before the next home game for Baylor or wherever you go to watch a team play. Waco Custom Marketplace, full throttle, bakery and butcher shop, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics.
Find out why more Central Texans are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
David Smith stays in a quarterback. He's looking to throw right down the middle, and he's intercepted. Picked off at the 50-yard line and brought back to the 46 as Walcott gets the interception.
This segment on Baylor Athletics on Sikkim 365 Radio is brought to you by Richard Carr Buick GMC Cadillac. Learn more at richardcarr.com.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Baylor football coach Dave Aranda, David Smoak, 365 Sports. Did you see Saturday night's performance coming?
You know, we've been getting better week by week. And so if I were to predict that it would be like that, probably not. But, you know, the practices, really since the bye, and I know that, you know, that includes the West Virginia game, but have been the best of the year. And, you know, the pre-games have been strong and the half times have been good. And so there's just a feeling that you have, you know, when it feels wrong and you know when it feels right, and it's just felt better and better as we go. And so I'll take Saturday anytime we can get it.
How do you ensure that that's not the exception?
We talk about that quite a bit of, you know, you look at the Tech West Virginia game and, you know, so what happens, and this is not to just, probably shouldn't use both those teams' names, but what happens is you have a great win on one side and then, you know, you get, everyone sees it and there is a tension that comes with it. And then, you know, and then the team that you're playing is not getting any attention, and then that feeds them, and it's all the external battle. If you allow it to get to that, you know, that is just an up and down battle. You look at West Virginia that lost that game to Tech, and they're getting just all this, you know, criticism and all this other stuff, and then, you know, they're kind of pronounced, you know, they're out of it, and then they have a great game versus TCU. And so anytime it's the outside stuff pushing the agenda, you leave yourself way at risk. And so it has to be the focus on, you know, for us, like motivation, like autonomy would be one thing, mastery would be another thing, you know, what's our purpose, why are we doing this would be the third thing, to keep it on those three things and not any of the outside stuff, which we know is still in play and all that, but we can't be driven by that, because I think just the up and down that we just talked about is, you know, you can end up being a slave to it.
You had a couple of players that were a little bit, you know, out in the public of social media, one after a win, who's a guy I've known since he was a kid, Jackson player, then Cole Maxwell mentioned person over player. Was that just a boiling point of frustration, and how do you handle that? And obviously Cole made the trip to Lubbock.
Yeah, I think, you know, the communication, so with Cole prior to the game. I just, I look at that as my fault. There should be, our coaches should be communicating with our players on who's traveling and who's not, and talk to them personally and let them know, hey, this is why this is this way. This is what this means. This is not the end of it. Next week's a new week, and really be a listening ear for, whatever needs to be said. And so that did not happen in this case. And so then when that doesn't happen, I think you get what you get. And I think that's completely understandable, and then that's completely on me, and so it goes to show that when life moves fast and there's all this other stuff, that you have to keep the first things first, and so it's a lesson learned.
Did you think that in any way kind of like built even more of a cohesiveness in the locker room, that you kind of got through that? Because if then you lose the game, and then next thing you know, that becomes even a bigger deal. Or was it even a big deal?
I don't think it was. I think that you could feel the cohesiveness kind of from the beginning of the week all the way through, and I think I'm hopeful that continues now, because I think, it's the praise that I'm worried about, because I think anytime we weren't really praised last week, which that's really when you think about it, going into a game, that Kansas game, you'd probably want it that way, where you get the win and it's not that impressive, and so that you still have an edge to you. Whereas when you get praised, now you really have to have some maturity to deal with it, and that has been an issue for us.
Dave, we've discussed your personality with Tony Dungy or Lovie Smith, or even back in the days of a Tom Landry. Some coaches are like what you are on the sideline, and some are fiery. It doesn't matter. But because of your personality, do you need vocal leaders more that actually are playing the game on your team? Not that you don't have them this year, but do you need that even more?
I don't know. I don't know if I was necessarily like silent, or I think for me on game day have been much more than last year, and it's because I need to. I think as coaches, we need to, just with the status of our team and kind of where all of that's at. But then, I think with that though, and this just is probably too much philosophy, but I just think, the reason why we do all of this isn't really to win. It's really to grow as a person, and I think to have a player that assumes a leadership role, that can show up when times are tough and can say the things that need to be said in a way that is not divisive but instructive, I think is part of it. And I think the stronger the coach presence, which is what I'm doing now on games especially, I think what that does is that can for sure motivate, but I think that also keeps people where they're at. I don't know if it really grows them, because he's got that, I can just do this. And I think when you get past football and you're into life, I don't know if there's going to be that coach saying we run full speed or get up here and whatever. And so I think the growth is the biggest part, and it's bigger than football, and so that's probably the internal struggle I have with where we're at right now, is to try to balance doing what we need to do so that we're as successful as we can be, but also that we have to be able to grow these people, because that's really why we're doing it.
Two sophomores, two freshmen and a sophomore among the 5 picks. Obviously, you must have done something well. You also forced Tech into some mistakes. Was that the pressure, or was that you playing a different type of defensive coverage? And does this now allow them you kind of let them even more run free as the season goes on?
I think it's all of those things. Yeah, I think part of the autonomy with the motivation is that within your position group or within a unit, offense or defense, or within the team, when you've done stuff well long enough, then it's like, hey, how do you see this? You're asking questions. What do you see here this is normally how we do it. What do you think? And you have to reach a certain level to get to that point. But we've got guys that have done that throughout the year. And so when they can kind of take some ownership of it. And then I think that helps with just some motivation because they feel it, and it's rightfully so. They're making a huge, they're a huge part of it, and the choices that they're making affects all of it. And so I think there was that for sure. I think there were tweaks in the back end to keep things tighter. I think we've been there where there's space and guys are just hooking, curling up within the zones, and they're converting. And then I had a lot more pressure, and we were calling them. And I thought that all three of those things combined.
Richard Reese is going to be named the Offensive Player of the Week in the Big 12, and 67 carries in 2 games. What was your original idea of what he might be this year, if much at all?
No, I mean, when you saw him early in camp, you could see it. And so the way he hit the line of scrimmage, and the way that he cut, and it was, foot in the ground, vertical. It was falling forward. It was always learning and growing. And so there was no, it's kind of an open book for Juice and for Grimes and everybody to work with. And so there was no agendas of I got this or I know that or what about this, and all of it has just been awesome to work with. And just who he is off the person or off the field just drives it, because I think the more the team gets to know him, the more they want to block for him.
He's wiry or tough. He's learned. You saw one game against Oklahoma State, he tried to bounce out a 4th and 1 and he got caught, because in high school he could, and now he's starting to hit that hole, isn't he?
That's exactly it. Yeah, and I think to have ability and then to have a learner's mindset like that is special. And the longer he keeps it, the higher up he'll go.
So now you have Oklahoma, and obviously we know who they are, and they've kind of turned the corner a little bit. Do you see a team that looks like they've improved in the last 2 or 3 weeks?
They have. Their effort is strong. I think their line play is physical, and their quarterback is a special player, and so it's a tough team.
Khalil Keith, how much does he give in you a little oomph in that grit on the offensive line?
No, he does. I think and we've had some good players in his stead, but when Khalil's just got that experience, and he has that confidence about him, and he has that physicality about him, and I thought he really played well in this last game. We're expecting for more.
You've said what you thought about Halloween night. If you could be a Halloween candy, which one would you be?
That's a good one. Yeah. Let me think about that. I would probably say like a Reese's. I would probably say that. Yeah, just with the peanut butter. I think that when I was a kid, that was my favorite candy. My brother always loved the candy corn, and so I just never understood that.
I didn't either.
Yeah, so I don't get him.
It's like chewing wax. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate your time. Baylor football coach Dave Aranda, 365 Sports. All right, so that's Dave Aranda from today. We appreciate that. Baylor with a win against Texas Tech. Oklahoma Saturday in Norman at 2 o'clock.
Yeah, that was interesting to hear a lot of his, he felt that the practices were getting better, even though we're watching and thinking like, man, this isn't going well. He thought they were getting better even over that time. And then for him to, you asked him about the Cole Maxwell and Jackson player and kind of the them being unhappy, uncomfortable, whatever you want to say, and he took that on himself. I think that's one of those things that's kind of different. Like a lot of coaches would either completely sidestep that question or kind of coach speak it out of the interview, right? And he said, look, that's on me for not noticing what was going on with these individual guys. I don't know if I've ever heard it put exactly like he did in regard to an incident like that.
Yeah, he addressed it well, and it's really not a big deal now at this point. I think he successfully, lessened anything stemming from that becoming anything else, and hopefully those guys. I mean, certainly Cole Maxwell and Jackson Player looked happy in that picture, but that's on them too to a certain extent. But I'm glad that he took responsibility for that, and it clearly worked out. And there's just a lot of things to he talked about there. But I don't know. I think I'm less interested in what he had to say outside of like Richard Reese and hearing him talk about Richard Reese and more just still thinking about the game on Saturday night and how that actually unfolded. I mean, he can talk about Richard Reese and how he's coming along, but I was just so thoroughly impressed by the way Reese ran on Saturday, the way that they dominated in the running game, the way that they did, and were really able to just keep just the football away from Texas Tech all night long. I mean, what a game plan that was. And, I know anytime you're losing games, even though they didn't lose the game coming into this one, but people start to get down like if you were that person who was like, I don't know if Dave Aranda's the guy. I remember those people a couple weeks ago, and it's just like, things aren't always going to be perfect, but like that's just such flip-flop language. I just can't even.
It is so bad.
I can't even believe like how people are just log back on after flip-flopping as much as they do on things like that. And I'm sure they're probably the most vocal now and how great Dave Aranda is. But, they've showed something the last couple weeks. They showed something on Saturday night, and I think most of all they showed what they're capable of when they're focused and locked in and playing to their best abilities and playing with a little bit of that edge that he talks about. I mean, all of that stuff was on display on Saturday night, and they didn't have Monterey Baldwin. They didn't have really a running back room. They basically had Richard Reese and a little bit of Quaylon Jones and then a dabble with the quarterback run game, but they didn't really want to, I think, risk that too much either because why risk Shapen getting hurt when you're in control? But, they weren't at full strength, and yet you would have thought that the way that Richard Reese ran, and that definitely sticks with me. But just across the board, it was a terrific effort. And, I know very disappointing for Tech, and rightfully so. Joey McGuire, after the game, this is what I was talking about all last week, man. I kept saying, yes, there is the fact that he's a former coach at Baylor. He was the associate head coach because he was named that after Aranda got the job that Joey went up for, and all that's fine. And then Joey got his opportunity, he left, and he started to do his own thing. But I just kept harping on, even when Tech fans are like, this is not the biggest game that we've ever hosted. Okay, that's not really what I'm trying to get at. What I'm getting at is, like, for Joey McGuire and this staff, this is a huge opportunity. It doesn't matter. It's not the biggest game that you've ever attended or the loudest crowd or whatever. For him and this staff, this is a giant opportunity. And what did he say after the game? What I'm most mad about is the giant missed opportunity that we had. We had this crowd here. We had Patrick Mahomes here. We had, these fans turn out. We had blackout, all this stuff, and we didn't show up and play to the best of our abilities. And that was my whole thing last week was imagine the difference in the feelings if Tech wins that game compared to what it is right now. Baylor's looking like, holy cow, we have a chance to still go win this thing. And they wouldn't have been feeling that had they come out on the losing end of that game. And Tech, on the other hand, is like, oh, wow, we got to kind of go look back in the mirror and kind of scramble the jets a little bit. Whereas had they won that game, then, boy, they're off to the races. It's party time in Lubbock. And so that was a crucial, I think, turning point in both of those seasons. And where they ended up, I think, is, going to be really curious to see how they both finish off, but that was an important win for Dave Aranda.
I know the chat room would be much different today.
Oh, yeah, it would. But, Smokey, I'm getting a little bit of 2012 vibes. I mean, they've got to finish out for sure, but
toughest part of their schedule upcoming.
But in 2012, it was kind of like, well, RG3.
What were they, 3 and 5?
Yeah, and then obviously better off, but like, oh, well, RG3's gone. That was kind of the feeling at the beginning of the season from the outside looking in. They can't really win. The defense was really bad. And then they had the moment, the Iowa State game kind of changed their whole attitude going forward. And this could be that moment. And part of it sometimes, especially for redshirt freshmen and sophomores and guys who haven't been in there, when they haven't done those things, you start wondering when you're going to, but then when you get 5 turnovers and 6 sacks and you have 11 plays that, most games you've had 2 of those combined, in this season as a defense, all of a sudden you think like, oh no, we can go hunt now. Let's go do that.
They had 5 interceptions, 8 tackles for losses, 6 sacks, and 6 broken up passes.
Joey said the defense basically pinned their ears back and there was nothing that Tech could do about it once they started doing that. And Joey also said that, one of the concerns going into this game was the fact that Texas Tech was running 100 plays back-to-back weeks. And who had the most plays that they had ever faced coming out of this weekend? Texas Tech. Baylor ran 89 plays on them. So they just completely flipped the script in every single way. In every single way they flipped the script. either doing things better that they hadn't been doing well, or taking what Tech had been doing well and taking that from them and then doing it to Texas Tech. And I just thought that was a terrific game plan. Terrific execution, because if you're not picking up the yards like Richard Reese moving the chains, then you're not able to stay out on the field for 95% of the ball game.
80 minutes compared to 39.
Yeah, I mean, that's the story of the game along with the turnovers. I mean, bottom line that is. And so just a masterful job, I feel like, from Miranda and company, and certainly a tough learning lesson, but a lesson that they will learn from for the guys in Lubbock.
I asked you guys this on the group text, and Levi and I actually talked about it in the postgame show. There were little things that coaching staff was doing the other night I was kind of picking up on that were, okay, how do we, especially early in this game, make sure that our young defense doesn't get behind, and all of a sudden Tech has this, 3-minute 12-play drive, and we're kind of dizzy going, how did they get all that done so fast? Well, you pay close enough attention that, you don't do the thing when they substitute one wide receiver, you substitute one defensive back. When they substitute one wide receiver, you take out 3 defensive linemen, and you tell those guys, listen, don't lose your breath on the way out there. And
it wasn't obvious, but the
subtle things.
Yes,
where
instead
of Texas Tech, what that offense wants to do is they want to, even with substitutions, if there's 40 seconds on the play clock, in the 20 to 18 second range, that ball's got to be snapped. But if they're not doing it at 9, then those fast-paced offenses start going, come on, they get impatient, and then they don't.
It's like a team that scores a bunch of points in basketball, and the other team takes their time getting the ball across half court, or also once they get there, you start to look at the scoreboard, the number, rather than whether you're winning by 12 at the time. In 2012, Baylor gave up 70, 49, 56, and 35, and 42 points in their losses. So that's not what this one's done, but they're starting to turn the corner, and yet again, they could go to Norman and get punched by a team that's trying to themselves turn the corner.
Well, the thing about OU is that was a special teams win if it was anything. I mean, they're feeling good about it, and they deserve to feel good about it, but that was definitely a special teams win. That was not Dylan Gabriel and the offense going crazy. That was not the defense being dominant. I mean, in some ways, I guess you could point to certain things, but that was a lot of the kicking game, winning that game for Oklahoma. So, they are getting better. If anything, they're playing with more confidence. But, I mean, this is a game that Baylor can win. There's no doubt. But if they play like they did on Saturday night, they can win this game. If they play like they have on other Saturdays, then, Oklahoma's going to get themselves a big win of their own.
Danny Stutzman, linebacker for Oklahoma. His dad, Steve, played tight end here at Baylor after playing high school football in East Texas. We come back. Bob Thompson, former Fox Sports president, his thoughts about the Big 12's agreement, the report from the Sports Business Journal. And I asked him right off the top, I thought you heard what Brett Yormark said, and he did exactly what he said and didn't think that this was imminent. What happened? This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, got a lot of great deals going on now over at Richard Carr. They are the people that you can count on, and they're the people that I've counted on a few different occasions, especially in the last few months for my vehicle and for getting it fixed up after a couple of fender benders and dings and bumps and whatnot from traveling all these construction roads. I've had a couple things go sideways, and Richard Carr has been there as the people that I've been able to count on. But if you're in the market for a new or used vehicle, the wait's over, because they have trucks and SUVs on the lot. 2022 GMC Sierras, Terrains, Acadias have arrived and we're waiting for you to test drive today. They've also got Cadillac XT4 and XT5 SUVs available for test drive as well. Inventory is there. It's arrived after a long wait, but it's going fast, so get over there for the best selection. And when you're looking at certain models like the GMC Sierra, for example, that vehicle offers best-in-class towing, strong steel bed, multi-pro tailgate, advanced collision avoidance, luxurious interior, massive touchscreens, 14 camera views, premium comfort. There's a lot to like. There's a lot to love, and you can go over to the dealership right now and check that out and test drive those GMC Sierras and see all those bells and whistles and see if it's the car or truck for you, whatever vehicle you may be looking at. But the Sierra is certainly a great deal right now. Get on over to Richard Carr to check those out. And if they don't have exactly what you're looking for, car, truck, or SUV, it's not on the lot, then get on their inbound vehicle list, and you can basically cut in line for that vehicle that's in production but not quite in stock just yet, or let the good folks over at Richard Carr design the exact truck or SUV you want, and they will have GMC prioritize it for you. So a lot of different ways to get exactly what you want in the end. And if you're not looking to buy new, they've got dozens of quality pre-owned cars and trucks in stock as well. For 23 years in Central Texas, Richard Carr's built a reputation as the people you can count on for your automotive needs. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6, the Imperial exit.
Make a winning drive to Genco and refinance your vehicle. Every loan can skip monthly payments for 90 days with rates as low as 3.75% APR for 48 months. Right now is the time to make a play. At Genco, we save you money by helping you pay less for your car. Every loan scores no payments for 90 days. Then have a chance to win 3 more months of no payments. Apply online today for an additional discount of 0.15% off our already low rates, subject to credit approval, membership eligibility, and loan policies. For more information, go to GencoFCU.org. Member NCUA.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Hi, this is Paul Catalina. I recently got engaged to the love of my life, but the most important thing that I had to do before I popped the question was get that perfect ring. And I know nothing about rings. So I went to the wedding ring store, Boozer's Jewelers on Valley Mills Drive. I knew I needed a custom design, and that's exactly what they do. 9 out of 10 of their engagement rings are designed in-house. The entire process took less than a month, and they were great every step of the way. Great options on financing, excellent selection, and talented designers. My fiance and I get nonstop compliments on the ring. I only deserve credit for doing the smartest thing I could, walking into Boozer's and letting them work their magic. Your one-of-a-kind fiance deserves a one-of-a-kind ring, and that's what you get at Boozer's. Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store on Valley Mills Drive.
Did you know Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco is open to the public? Next time you're in town for a Baylor athletic event or you're in town for tourism, take advantage of their day passes for $10 a piece or the weekend for $30. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers 40 group exercise classes, including indoor cycling and yoga, boot camp, and bar. New free weights, weight machines, TRX rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new elliptical machines, and a spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, and Alec Botch, where you will be encouraged to grow. Sauna, whirlpool, tanning bed, kids club, 16 tennis courts and 8 pickleball courts, and youth and adult tennis and pickleball lessons available. Waco's premier experience where you can help your mind, body, and soul. Visit wacotennis.com or visit them next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
joined by Bob Thompson, former Fox Sports executive, president, and also consultant to media and much more on 365 Sports. So when you saw yesterday's Sports Business Journal report, were you surprised?
Well, I was surprised to see it on Sunday. That was a little unusual. But, I was a little surprised based on some of Brett's comments last week, where it didn't sound like they were quite as far along as some had believed. And he said that they hadn't really talked about term, but I guess they got through that pretty quickly. And, the numbers, I think, look pretty good. I think might have gotten more if he'd waited. But, to be able to show some stability to the conference members, show a number to, outside parties who might be interested in the Big 12 Conference, I think, those were home runs for him.
Had I asked you back when Texas, Oklahoma, SEC, that story hit in July of 2021, would you have thought the Big 12 would not only expand but also be in a position to have a new agreement?
Well, I don't think I would have said they would have got that number prior to the expansion. I think if you just said, okay, now we're at 18 conference, and you would have gotten nowhere near that. I think you would have been low 20s best. Adding the 4 schools, makes up for Texas and Oklahoma and adds 2 more. So now you're at 12. I mean, that's part of the deal with all of these rights agreements. When you look at the total number, you really have to look at per school, because the total number, it just depends how many schools you've got, what kind of rights are in there. Some schools put in total distributions, or some conferences put in total distributions, including CFP, bowl, NCAA, men's basketball credit, the whole kitchen sink. And what you really need to compare is an apples-to-apples basis. So, basically Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 champ games, and men's basketball, college football, et cetera, all in.
You had mentioned you were a little bit surprised on Sunday, and I saw your tweet about the fact you thought perhaps there was a reason behind it. Was it to get ahead of anything that might be coming with the Pac-12, or was it just, let's get this going?
I think it was, let's just get this thing going. And I think, maybe Sports Business Journal had the story, and then at that point, they're probably better off to get it out and control the narrative. Also get it out and control, get it into the Sports Business Journal weekly edition, which is, comes out today. So by coming out yesterday, they were able to get that in the magazine before it went to print. Otherwise, it would have leaked out in bits and pieces and come out over the course of the week, and you kind of lose the ability to control the flow.
What does this suggest, if anything, about the future possibilities of expansion or even future rights with network TV in the Big 12?
Well, I think for future rights, it's it's a good sign. You're able to renew with your incumbents. They're both broad-based networks as well as cable networks. ESPN provides the streaming element, which is important to have these days. And I think for the conference, it's a good sign. I think it's also very smart for them to, you either want to go first, but you don't want to go last. And to go after the Big Ten, let the Big Ten kind of carry the water and set the new rights in 2030. And this one comes up a year later, which is before the SEC and the ACC. And soon, we don't know about whether the Pac-10 or Pac-12 is before them or with them until that deal's done. But I think they've positioned themselves going forward very well.
Is there actually even more value than the television dollars that you're on both ESPN and Fox as far as their exposure or what that brings until you get your next rights done in early 2030s?
I think certainly exposure is important, and I think I've mentioned to you guys, be careful about trading dollars for distribution. And, it's unknown yet as to whether or not the Pac-12 is going to do that, but you want to have your product available to as many people as possible in the easiest manner possible. And right now, that's on broadcast and linear cable TV. There's just no other way around it.
Next step, you think, is there another step in growing media revenues for the Big 12, or this is what they are? Do you feel like Brett Yormark might be able to come up with something else?
You're always looking for ways to add value. And so I think that that's something that they're going to have to look into. It's certainly something the ACC is looking into because they're kind of stuck for a few years. So they're definitely looking for new ways to, pump their revenues. And I think every conference is going to have to do that because at some point, you're going to either have to go heavier in on streaming and hope those guys are there with a bigger check than what you may have received in the past. But it's going to be important to find ulterior means to increase your revenues, and you can't just 100% rely on TV rights. But for now, it's a very good source of revenue, and I'm glad that these deals are getting done in a timely manner and at a pretty good dollar amount.
Was this kind of a power move in a way, Brett Yormark, to get this done in a matter of 2 to 3 months?
I think it's like any individual new to a position or a politician new to their position. They're looking to hit a nice solid double in the first 90 days. And I think here he had a nice solid triple. I think, could he have gotten more money if he'd waited a little longer? Possibly. But I don't think he left a whole lot on the table, and he ended up with, Fox and ESPN, the two preeminent college football outlets, and he's got decent money, and he can show the conference and the new members that there's stability for the next 6 years. And if there's potential others out there, I'm not sure exactly how the additions and subtraction or additions might work if there was expansion. I don't necessarily believe that there's a fixed dollar figure in there for whoever they bring in. It just doesn't ring true to me, but time will tell on that. But I think it was a great deal overall for the conference.
Do you feel like there's still enough on the table for the Pac-12? And obviously, Kliavkoff has made some comments, but do you feel like that there's enough on the table for them to be in a real good competitive area with the Big 12?
I think they're going to be in the neighborhood. I've kind of said all along that the Pac-12 might be, 10 to 15% less than the Big 12 unless they can figure out some way to better monetize the content that's on the Pac-12 networks. And if they're able to do that, then, they can be right up there with the Big 12. The biggest question will be for the Pac-12 is, what's their outlets? I'm not convinced that Fox needs much more college football. They picked up some Big 12 basketball for the first time, which can easily replace the Pac-12 basketball they've carried over the years and would not retain if they don't renew the deal. So they notched off a couple of things, and so I think certainly ESPN's still got to be interested in the Pac-12 for the late windows. And the bigger question becomes, who's the other carrier? Is it a streaming service? Is it another network? And that'll determine, I guess, the total, how good the Pac-12 deal ends up being.
In your opinion, Bob Thompson, with his former Fox Sports president, what's the most significant part of what was released by the Sports Business Journal?
Oh, probably the fact that if, after all is said and done, and people were talking about how the conference is going to take a huge bath because they lost Texas and Oklahoma, the fact that they were able to, increase the deal over the last years of the existing deal, I think is probably the most important thing that was, went forward. They didn't go backwards, even though they lost those two schools, and they picked up 4 good replacements. And so I think that's probably the key takeaway for me.
With ESPN and Fox and what they've agreed to with others, is there a chance that if there's another network for the Pac-12, would it be Turner? Or who do you think it will be, ESPN and then maybe streaming, or could Turner Sports get involved?
That's possible. I really think Turner Sports is, the whole Warner Brothers Discovery merger is still getting kind of sorted out. They've got the NBA deal coming up, and that's very important to Turner. They're still kind of going into year 2 of the NHL. Haven't had a big history with college football in the past, so I'd be surprised if it was Turner. I don't see NBC wanting anything on the West Coast. Saturday Night Live in prime time is, too important. And CBS has always been happy with just a 3:30 Eastern window. So I'm on ESPN and Amazon and or Apple with some level of rights as well. for the Pac-12.
Bob, you've been in the middle of this. My last question for you. They have gotten this done, the Big 12. They have been through 3 stretches in their history in the last 12 years. Nebraska and Colorado leave, and the rumors that UT or Oklahoma, the Pac-12. Then A&M Missouri leave, and there was rumors. And now just July of last year. How resilient is the Big 12 in somehow surviving?
Very resilient, and I think that's a credit to the institutions and to the fan bases of each of the schools that have remained. If you look at the conference now, I mean, I can't remember a time when there was as much parity in the Big 12 conference. And, you know, I go back to the Southwest Conference and the Big 8. And so these collection of schools they have right now, you know, any given day, someone's going to beat up on the other. And so you've got compelling matchups. It's not Texas OU top heavy anymore. I think going forward, it's got very exciting brand of football. They now have some stability and a good rights deal, and then just keep plugging away at it and trying to grow the revenues in other ways and try to keep up somewhat with those 2 other conferences.
Bob Thompson, former Fox Sports president and consultant on 365 Sports.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, behind the bank. The best place for craft beer in Waco. And look, it's the fall right now. You want some of those pumpkin brews, that's the place you got to go to. The best place for local craft whiskeys. When I say local, I mean Texas, which is pretty big local, but that means Balcones. That means TX, Devil's River, Garrison Brothers. Tons of great Texas whiskeys there and all the varieties within those brands. So they have the genus and the species, so to speak, of all of them, all the way down the line. Great customer service, a drive-through window that I'm telling you is so fast you won't even know it hit you. They're great. They have great recommendations. They'll have great promotions. You can follow them on Instagram. And look, say you forget something or you're sitting around, you're at a party, you're at a block party, you're doing something, you can just call DoorDash, have them bring it right to you. That's available as well. At Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street in Waco. Look for them behind the bank. Check them out on Instagram and also available on DoorDash.
The wait is over. Richard Carr GMC has the trucks. 2022 GMC Sierras have hit the lot and they're waiting for you. Sierra trucks offer best-in-class towing, strong steel beds, multi-pro tailgates, and advanced features that make driving a Sierra second to none. Trucks are waiting for you to test drive now. So call now, log in now, or get here now and drive your next truck today at Richard Carr.
Richard Carr, they have the truck for you.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, cause weight gain, and wreak havoc on your sexual desire and performance. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results, so if you're tired of being tired, I challenge you to man up and Google search Low T Waco or go online pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $150 a month, includes lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, follow-up visits compared to $395 a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T as board-certified physician consultations will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone available. Contact Petty Clinic Low T today. Just off Highway 84 on Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, Petty Clinic Low T, helping men become the high-performance men they deserve to be. PettyClinicLowT.com or Google search Low T Waco.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
It's football and tailgate season. If you want product for the grill or smoker, charcoal, seasonings, marinades, sauces, Waco Custom Marketplace is your home to help prep, cook, and enjoy your food. Tailgate must-like brisket, tri-tip, fresh-made burgers, sausage, chicken wings, and if you want steaks, call in your order and pick them up. Bacon wrap fillets or any kind of ribeyes. USDA Select Choice and Prime that melt in your mouth. House-made sausage and jerky. Also, Waco Custom Marketplace, a one-stop shop for tailgating, barbecue cook-offs, and family get-togethers, fundraisers with fair prices to you, the customer. A bakery with fresh baked bread and kolaches. There's cold beer, wine, and soft drinks. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. A cut above the rest. Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Underneath, here it is. Whittington, look out. Noah Whittington, touchdown.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Ben Erlinson, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
So we had a super chat, Hayden Maxwell. If, in fact, if they beat Alabama this week and still put either Tennessee or Georgia ahead of them, the committee is really starting to irk me. I don't understand if they beat LSU, I guess. He's worried about...
It's the committee.
The committee's tomorrow night. They're going to release. They haven't done anything yet. They meet tomorrow. The first release is out tomorrow. So Hayden, I'm not appreciate the super chat, but I have no idea. And I tell you what, there's interest because there are more than just 2 or 3 obvious teams. There's about 8 or 9 teams that are still in this thing. So Hayden, thanks to super chat, appreciate that. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know where TCU is going to be. TCU's been through this before in 2014, along with Baylor. And so have other teams along the way, and sometimes it makes no sense to me.
What does TCU have to do with that question?
Okay, I'll read the whole super chat to you. Craig, it was actually directed to you. Okay. Craig, WTH is up with the committee still having Bama ranked above TCU when they already have a loss. Also, will they be ignorant enough to throw LSU ahead if they beat Bama this week and still put either Tennessee or Georgia ahead of them? The committee is really starting to irk me, but...
Okay, yeah, I only see part of the question, so that's why I didn't see that top part of it. All right, yeah, that makes more sense because what is TCU beating Bama this week? I didn't understand that, but yeah, we don't have committee results just yet, so we'll find that out and then have to kind of go from there, I suppose.
Yeah, we're still about 27 hours away from
and don't live or die with them because we know what the history has shown us. Sonny Dykes became the first head coach in Big 12 history to start 8-0 in his first season. 8-0 start. That's the 5th for TCU in the last 20 years. Only Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and Boise State have done that more often over that same time period. Let's see here. What in the hell? Louisville beat the dog out of Wake Forest with a bunch of interceptions in that game.
That's 6 in one quarter, right?
Yeah.
It was in one quarter.
It's tying them 35 points in the third quarter against Wake Forest, number 10, tying the most ever scored against an AP top 10 opponent in one quarter. Also done by USC against Notre Dame in 1974, Nebraska against Oklahoma State in 1988, and Oklahoma against number 2 Texas Tech in 2008. That was the year they had the Oklahoma, Texas Tech, Texas trifecta of really, really good teams, and Oklahoma went on to play for the national title. So Louisville did that. I was waiting for that 2001 Colorado-Nebraska game. Thought Colorado scored 50 in one quarter in that one. Also, the largest shutout loss by a top 10 team Since number 10, USC lost to Notre Dame 51-0 in 1966. That's what the Kansas State win against Oklahoma State. A 56-year difference between the last time and then what we saw Saturday. We're now joined by our great friend, Fox Sports' Tim Brando, joins us on 365 Sports. Tim, let's start with the Big 12 contract. It's not yet been announced, but it's pretty much all but done. And your thoughts about what you've seen or read yourself. We've had 2 or 3 analysts on the show today to kind of break it down.
My understanding is it's done. And so everything that you've read, at least from an information standpoint from the people that follow such things, if it's in John Oran's Sports Business Journal, I mean, it's done. Okay. He's on top of that stuff as much as anybody. And I think we spoke about it. What was it? The last time I was on 2 or 3 weeks ago. And it pretty much worked out the way I thought it would. I'm a little surprised. I really don't quite get what some members of the media are deciding to write about. That's a little bit nuts from my standpoint. About they got a great deal. It's a lot more money. But it's still way behind the Big Ten and the SEC. Was anybody expecting? I mean, who was expecting the money to be like the Big Ten or like the SECs? I mean, it costs more to do business in those leagues. I don't think any of the athletic directors or presidents of the universities in the Big 12 were expecting, a deal that would rival the Big Tens or the SECs. I really don't. So why anyone wants to pour cold water on it these days, other than to troll people on social media, I guess that's the only reason to do it. It makes no sense to me. We're covering college football. You want college football to do well. This is good news for everybody. So what's the purpose of that? I don't quite understand it. I will tell you from a personal point of view and professional point of view, I'm excited because this time I don't know the specifics because I wasn't part of Fox Sports when the Big 12 deal, the one that's currently in play, was made. But my understanding was they being Fox, and this was while I was, somewhere else. I was at CBS at the time. Passed on covering college basketball, just chose not to do it. That was a huge error. I mean, the Big 12 is the best college basketball conference in America. And I am dying to come to Baylor for basketball. Kansas, Bog Allen. Are you kidding me? Places like that. It's just an amazing conference for basketball, and even the new teams that are coming in. Think about it. BYU, Cincinnati are outstanding basketball programs. So I'm thrilled about it, both personally and professionally. And I don't think anything with this is surprising other than that they got more money without Texas and Oklahoma. A lot of people felt in the sports business world that, and this was going on really before Yormark became the commissioner, but during the time when Bob Bowlesby was, coming up with the extra schools, when he came up with the 3 schools out of the American and BYU, I think a lot of people were convinced that, okay, they might be able to get a good television deal, but it'll never be the kind of deal they had when they had both Oklahoma and Texas. Well, guess what? It not only is the kind of deal, it's better than the deal they had. The teams will be making, I think, on average, $7 million or more annually from this new television contract. And so, for those that were raining on the Big 12's parade and said that, they're in trouble, they may break up, they may all have to merge with another league. Well, put that in your social media peace pipe and smoke it.
Tim, what do you think that this means for expansion or anything going forward? Do you think any deal for a conference like the Big 12 is pretty much good news for the Pac-12, the AAC, and everybody else because it shows the value of live sports, or is it still to be determined?
Well, I don't know that expansion is not over. I think the potential for expansion or realignment, put it that way. When I say expansion, I think we're talking about the playoff. The potential of more realignment, Paul, is there. But it'll only happen after the TV deals are done. I think getting the TV deals are done is both good because we're going to get closer to college football playoff expansion. And I think getting the TV deal done for the Big 12 means that the Pac-12 cannot be far behind in terms of getting their own deal done. And if they don't get the deal done too soon, if they don't get it done relatively soon, then the potential of further realignment, I think, exists. Some are saying that Kliavkoff and the Pac-12 are looking to go streaming, and they could get more money from Amazon than they would from the linear networks, either the cable giant ESPN or the linear giant Fox, which are the two movers and shakers in college football. I don't think there's any question about that. That's true. They could possibly get more money. But right now, you might get money, but if your product is not exposed, I mean, if it's not being distributed, and right now streaming is not doing that well, check the numbers on Amazon for the NFL on Thursday nights. Now, the NFL cashed in, no question about that, but they are they have roughly half the audience that Fox had when they had the Thursday night NFL package, and when CBS had the Thursday night NFL package before Fox had it. So, yeah, you might get more money, but if you're out of sight, out of mind for more than 50% of those people that used to watch you, then there's a price to be paid at this stage. Now, that may change. You know, it may change. In another 5 years, as many people might be watching Prime Video as they are right now. Could be twice as many. Who knows? But for the moment, I think your best bet, if you're a conference, to both have exposure and cash, is to be with linear sports television. Okay, I think that's the wiser choice. This notion that you're going to have to pay for everything, people don't, in this day and time with the economy the way it is, no, people don't want to pay for everything that they get in sports. They want to turn on their television set and feel like if they have cable or if they don't have cable, we can still get it somehow, some way for free. And I think that matters to a lot of people. And right now, I think this deal with the Big 12 is an example of that.
Tim, it was inevitable that Brian Harsin and Auburn would go their separate ways, but now it's official. Your thoughts on the Tigers getting a new AD, moving on from Harsin, and now going to the coaching market?
You know, I would love to be a fly on the wall in John Cohen's office right now. I'd love to know how he feels. He's got assurances that he's going to be able to clean house and have total control at Auburn, because no one in my lifetime ever has in the administrative area of Auburn University. I mean, I've been covering college football for basically 5 decades, and Auburn has had great success. Yes, why? Because they have the infrastructure for it, and they've had great coaches. You know, going back to Shug Jordan and through the years with Pat Dye. But in the modern era of college football, from the moment Pat Dye left and Terry Bowden was fired, it has been one joke after another. Terry Bowden should have never been run out the way he was, but he was. And this still goes on very much the same as it always has, about every 3 years. Look, they've contributed Auburn in since Gus Malzahn cashed his $22 million check and left for Orlando. If you look at all of the assistant coaches and head coaches, okay, that they've had, that was with Gus and now with Brian, I'm told this check is $16 million that they're paying, and that's just for him, not to mention the assistants. They've contributed $50 million in the last 2.5 years to the dead money fund that the college football playoff has delivered to intercollegiate athletics. Okay, and we're talking $540 million overall since the playoff era came in play for Division I college football. I mean, my God, just pretty incredible when you think about it. Who takes the job? If Hugh Freeze, this is just my opinion, if Hugh Freeze, who I believe really wants to get back into the SEC, doesn't take this job or isn't offered the job, and I don't believe that he will now because Cohen was the Mississippi State athletic director while Hugh was the head coach at Ole Miss. I don't see that happening. I don't think Hugh will ever coach in the SEC if he doesn't get the Auburn job. Auburn is the most mismanaged, program in the last, 5 decades of college football. I mean, it's been awful. It really has. Ever since Coach Dye left, it's just been awful. No one has had, great success without all of a sudden hitting the skids the very next year, going back to a national championship that was won when Cam Newton was there. Gene Chizik doesn't win a game in the SEC the following year, then he's thrown out in favor of Gus Malzahn, who they were trying to get rid of every year after they made him the head football coach. So, Hugh really would be the guy that would work there. I mean, he would want the job. He would be effective at the job. All he's ever done is win, but obviously he's got baggage unlike any other coach in Division I has baggage. His baggage is pretty unique, but I feel that he served his time. His reputation took as big a beating as a man and a coach's reputation could take. And, I think he would come in there right away with a culture that would allow him to win. I really believe that. But I don't think he's going to get the job because the hiring of Cohen tells me that he's off the grid. He's not going to make it. I don't know anybody else that would want that job. I heard some talk today as I was driving home from Mississippi about Matt Rule. Matt Rule's not going to take that job. Why would Matt, with his situation being what it is, he should be able to pick any job in college football he would want. And I can't imagine that Auburn, with its issues, would be, a primary location for him. I just don't see that. I really don't.
Tim, you had Kansas State a couple of weeks ago. They had injured quarterbacks, and the second half was all TCU, and then I don't want to say out of nowhere, but kind of out of nowhere, they put a beat down on Oklahoma State that I don't think anybody was seeing coming. Winning, yes, but 48-0. Holy cow! What were your thoughts about that?
Well, it's pretty clear Will Howard has Wally pipped Adrian Martinez, don't you think?
It appears.
Yeah, I got blistered by some K-State fans on social media. They didn't even know who Wally Pipp was. That's not surprising. It's social media, I guess. But Howard is a guy that can beat you vertically with his arm. Martinez is a runner primarily, and I think they were throwing the ball about half as much with Adrian at quarterback. I guess that was because they wanted to protect the ball, with his stats at Nebraska being what they were, and he was a little banged up. Took himself out of the game that we had at TCU, and then Howard came in. It was pretty clear during the open date, Howard had as many snaps in preparation for that game as Martinez had, if not more, and he lit up TCU for a quarter and a half. They had a 17-point lead and an 18-point lead in that game, 28-10 late in the second quarter. And then the Horned Frogs did exactly what they did against Oklahoma State, and Max Duggan led them back with some dynamic plays and an outstanding running game. Kendra Miller and Amari DiMarcado, those guys were just, they were outstanding. Kendra Miller's a great back, and I think that this is you got to give it to Sonny Dykes. I mean, he was known as an air raid guy, and he still is an air raid guy. But, he's running the football. He knows what his team's strengths are. And I think he's amended some of his Mike Leach teachings to some extent to be effective. And they're playing at a very, very high level. And if you look at what's left on that schedule, fellas, I think they got a pretty good shot of running the table. They could be just the team to screw it up for the SEC, to keep two SEC teams from going into the playoff. Or, for that matter, if not them, it could screw it up for the Big Ten. If they were thinking that they could get possibly two teams with Michigan and Ohio State into the college football playoff. If they run the table, they're in, okay? Oregon as a loss. It would be much harder for them to run the table, losing the way they did at Georgia in the opener, to sneak in and steal that fourth spot. But TCU's in a great position, I think.
Tim, speaking of the SEC and then the playoff and all of that, Georgia and Tennessee both take care of their business, setting up quite the showdown this weekend in Athens. Your thoughts on just the magnitude of this game and kind of how we got here?
Well, let me give you a little preview. I'm a little late today because of my trip home. My wife and I drove back from Mississippi. I've been on a junket the last week and a half. I did the TCU game, then I drove to Little Rock to speak. Then I went to my daughter's new home in Madison, Mississippi for a couple of days and flew to Berkeley to do the Oregon game, and then back to Mississippi on a red eye before I came home today. Tennessee, when my top 10 comes out, you'll see I've got them number one. I think Tennessee deserves to be the number one team in the country. That should give you, I think, a little bit of a preview of where I think the committee tomorrow night is going to put them. I think Tennessee, because of who they played, their strength of schedule to this point, the wins they have, is stronger than Ohio State. And Ohio State gave that game. Really, that game was given to them by Penn State in the late stages. I mean, Penn State was right there. I thought in a position to get it done. And mysteriously just gave the ball away. Now, granted, Ohio State impacted that to some extent. They've got a really good defense. Jim Knowles has done a great job. But I'm going to drop Ohio State 2 from 1. And I'm going to drop Georgia down to 3. So as it relates to this game, I believe Tennessee's the better team. I think Tennessee can win it. I really do. And this is one of those unbelievable turnaround stories, fellas. Similar to Steve Spurrier when he went to Florida. I don't know if you remember 1990 when the Fun and Gun came to the Swamp. And what he did was miraculous. He completely changed the course of the Southeastern Conference offensively. Not just the program of Florida, but the entire conference. And I think Heupel has done the same. And that was no fluke what happened with Alabama. The only difference with the Alabama situation was that their defense did not play to the level that Tennessee's defense can play to. I actually think their defense is underrated, undervalued. They don't have to be a dominant defense to win the national championship. They just have to be good enough to support the offense that's playing at the highest level of any team in college football right now. So I'm going to have them 1, and that means I believe they'll beat Georgia.
Vince Dooley, 90, passed away. I know you got to have a Vince Dooley story or two.
Oh, God. Oh, fellas. I don't know. It was a long weekend for me, okay, when that news came out. We were at Cal. We'd just come out of some meetings with Justin Wilcox and a few of his players, Jack Plummer, the quarterback and whatnot, and I had the text from Claude Felton, the longtime sports information director there. It's so close to Vince and always has been. And then I traded texts with Derek and with Barbara, his son and his wife. It was, sometimes, Smokey, you know this, you have somebody in your life that you've known a long time, you know he or she's lived for 90 years, and you say, well, what a wonderful life, but you're still not ready to lose them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Not ready to lose them no matter what. And Vince was one of those guys for me. He was my first regular partner in the booth for college football games on a national level. I had left game day after the 88 season, agreed to a new deal to move home to Louisiana, with the caveat being that I would go in the booth and work CFA football, the daytime games, mid-afternoon games on on ESPN. And that was in 1989. Ron Franklin was working the primetime games. I was going to do the afternoon games, the late Ron Franklin. And they told me I'm going to be paired with Vince Dooley in Vince's first year out of coaching. Well, we had a great relationship. I'd worked the sidelines in 85 and 86 before starting game day, and I was on hand for some of Vince's biggest wins. They beat number 2 Auburn on the Plains, and they turned on the sprinkler system in the middle of our interview. I'll never forget that. as fans from Georgia were rushing the field at Auburn. Okay, Vince's history with Auburn as a quarterback, playing for Jordan way back in the day, they were forever. He and Barber were both. They met at Auburn. Okay, Barber's from Tuscaloosa and Vince from Mobile, Alabama, and they met together at Auburn, and then later became the first family of Georgia in so many ways. I'll never forget this, though. As a young broadcaster, fellas, I thought, okay, Vince Dooley, his speech pattern is just like Frank Broyles. I was like, this is going to be great. We could be the next generation Frank and Keith, right? So I'm talking to him about our first game, and I got a call from Barbara right before our first game in 1989. We were going to do it on a Thursday night in Provo, Utah. BYU was playing Washington State. It was Todd Detmer's sophomore year. And Barbara called me and said, now, Tim, you're going to have to help him with pronunciations now. He has problems pronouncing his own team's name. Okay, he's got problems with that. You're going to have to help him. So I said, okay, Barbara, we're doing our rehearsal for the first open of the game. And I'm like, we're here in Provo, Utah. It's BYU and Washington State. Tim Brando with Vince Dooley. And Vince, what about tonight's game? And he says, well, Timmy, my boy, this BYU quarterback, Todd Detmer, is one of the finest field generals. I said, wait a minute. Stop. I said, Coach, you know, the moms and dads of these kids, they really want the names pronounced correctly. It's Detmer, okay? Rhymes with fur. Think incense and myrrh. Detmer. And he looked at me and he said, Timmy, that's what I said. I said Detmer. I said, let's just start this thing. And then the first play from scrimmage, all right? The first play from scrimmage, BYU's got, Lavelle Edwards is throwing the ball all over the lot. They're throwing the ball everywhere. He's got like 7 little guys out running pass batteries. They've got 2 running plays at BYU in 1989, a draw and a sprint draw. And the first play is a draw to a Samoan running back named Peter Tuipulotu. Now think about that for a second, okay? So I call the play. It's Tuipulotu. He's at the 30, the 20, the 10. He's finally run down inside the 5. It's a 65-yard run. And now we're waiting for Vince's first replay. First replay of his first telecast. And he does the coach's clinic thing, right? He's looking in front of the monitor and he says, now, Timmy, right here you're going to see a running back. You're going to see right here the running back is going to carry the ball. It's a clinic on how to run the football. He's got his tail down and his head up, and it explodes upon contact. So now I'm thinking, okay, what Vince doesn't know is, this is big time network television. We're going to have another angle of this thing. It's a 65-yard run. And so here it comes. Well, here it is again, Timmy, from field level. He says, now he's coming right into your living room. Timmy, here he is. There's Peter. So we laughed, we got through it, and we closed out the season with the Holiday Bowl, and it was BYU again. And Detmer set what was a single game passing record that night. I think he threw for 453 yards, which was the most ever in a college football Division I game at that time. And it was crazy. And Gary Brown, the late Wisconsin running backs coach who played at Penn State, was a running back in his junior and senior years, but he was a safety. He came on a blitz, a safety blitz, and he whiffed on Detmer, and then came from behind Detmer and stole the ball out of his hands as he was about to pass, and then took off the other way to win the game 50-39. BYU was on their way to a game-clinching touchdown, and what was, I think, almost a 5-hour football game. That's I thought we would be doing it all over again the next year, and then Vince got the job as AD, and he had another year on his deal, and he chose to get out after one season in the booth with me. But it was just, we became such great friends, and we maintained contact with one another. And all those years that I was doing SEC games, when I came into Athens, I'd stay at his home. He had a pool house in the back, and that was better than the Holiday Inn in Athens. So I would stay with him. And then my daughter was dating her fiance, soon-to-be husband, who now lives in Mississippi. She came to watch Ole Miss play Georgia 10 years ago, and she and her husband-to-be stayed in their home. They stayed through the weekend after I left and watched more football on a Sunday. They were just very close friends. He came to my daughter's weddings. Barbara and Vince were in our home when Georgia played in the Independence Bowl one year. Just a wonderful, wonderful man, and someone that was very helpful to me in terms of understanding, the other side of the business. That Tim, you can speak bluntly about what you really believe. No one has a problem with your opinions as long as they're well-founded opinions. Just consider people's feelings when you give them. That's all, and that's a good thing. He was a guiding light in a lot of ways in my life and everyone else's life that he touched. He's on my Mount Rushmore for college football coaches in the SEC. I think you've got to put him there. I think you put Nealon there, Bear Bryant, Steve Spurrier. He's in that group. He's certainly top 5 all time in the history of the Southeastern Conference, and he's top 10 all time in college football as a whole. 201 wins, 6 SEC titles, a national championship. Could have had a second very easily. They got beat on that Penn State game could have gone their way, and they lost the opportunity with Pitt one year when Marino had an unbelievable game to barely beat Georgia. So 3 straight years in 80, 81, and 82, you were hard-pressed to find a better team than that one.
Tim, as always, a great reminiscing about many things. Glad I brought up Vince and also the time you spent with him. And he was the ultimate gentleman, it seemed like, in college football. Yeah.
A great Southern statesman. He really, really was. And he will be a guy that all of us miss. And regardless of this having a full life, we wish that he could have lived forever.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate the emotions as well. Tim Brando, Fox Sports, with us, and has become part of our go-to, and his opinions and his history, and we appreciate him so much, and especially a little bit on I didn't know some of that about Vince Dooley. Just know he was a great football coach and a great gentleman.
I remember watching that Holiday Bowl game, but that was so long ago. I didn't remember Vince Dooley on it, but I remember that Holiday Bowl game where he tore it up all over the place.
They have Kansas, Oklahoma State this weekend, Tim and Spencer Tillman. And you talk about what do you expect from Oklahoma State after what happened. And then, of course, Kansas still in search. And as somebody on the Simon said, desperate for that 6th win to get to bowl eligibility. All right, we're not done. 5:30, David Hellman. Cowboys, they put on the afterburners yesterday, including an incredible play from Micah Parsons. Beat up the Bears in a high-scoring game. Tony Pollard was phenomenal. A lot of craziness in the NFL yesterday. That and more next on 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco. Ted Teague, the general manager, sent me a couple of nuggets for this week, at least for now. The Black Friday sales event happening right now at the dealership. A great selection of new cars and trucks like the 2022 Ram trucks. Legendary award-winning trucks designed to be durable, functional, stylish. Ram trucks give you that first-class feel with luxurious leathers, trim seating, options for you, exceptional legroom and storage. And it's crazy now, some of the little cubby holes as storage rooms and spots that they have now inside trucks. If you don't have exactly what you want at their dealership or they don't have it, they'll find it for you. Go by and test drive what you need, what you want, and tell them what you want. Go by Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, the Black Friday sales event on right now, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year. It's football season. And BK Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football teams in Texas, right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, led by our leading rusher, the F-150, 45 years in a row. Lock in your best price and rate today by custom ordering your new F-150 at BK Ford. Simple, easy, trusted. Experience better at Bird Colgan Ford.
Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneerboys.com.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Howdy, Chet Garner here, professional guide, searching for bears in the wild. But not just any bears, oh no, a particular kind. With hundreds of thousands roaming freely in the wild, yet still hard to spot unless you know the signs. There they are, Baylor bears. If you're a bear enthusiast or even a bear yourself, join me and let's find some bears in the wild.
Join the expedition at baylor.edu/alumni.
Looking for a great job with great pay and awesome benefits? Genco FCU is hiring. As a longtime Waco employer, Genco focuses on what matters most in our employees' lives, like pay incentives, bonuses, benefits, 401k plans, paid time off, advancement opportunities, medical, prescription, dental, and vision insurance, as well as short and long-term disability. Come join our incredible team today and make Genco your career that will work for you. Apply at gencofcu.org or at any branch location.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
First and goal. He's found 5 different targets. He's going to hand it off. It's Pollard, and he's across for the Dallas touchdown.
It's time for our weekly segment with David Hellman of FoxSports.com.
We've got a nugget or 10 on some news and notes from the weekend. We'll try to get to that between David Hellman and Paul's top 5. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak. I'm David Smoak. David Hellman, Fox Sports, joins us, covers the NFL and the Cowboys. David, is there ever a time when Micah Parsons does something and you just get used to it?
I mean, if I wasn't there yet, I am now. Yeah, I think I probably got used to that sometimes last season, but I feel like we've been waiting on him to make a play like that, like to score a touchdown, whether it's a pick six or a fumble recovery or whatever. So, happy to see him finally get that in the books. And yeah, I mean, the amazing thing is okay, good for you. Like, you pursued the play great. You had the wherewithal to get back to the end zone. But, like, you know, what are the odds that Justin Fields just jumps clean over him? Well, I mean, you know, that one's not so much in Micah's control. So sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. But when you hustle the way that he does, you set yourself up for moments like that, I guess. But yeah, I think at this point, it's Micah's world. We're just living in it.
If I was writing this superhero comic about him, I would say that one of his powers is to have enough spatial awareness to make his body tiny enough to where a cleat did not graze his jersey in that moment, because it was just so weird. And to have the awareness just to get up and run too, I thought was you know, it's not just the athleticism, it's how aware he is of everything that's going on in the field all the time, even when he started out that play trying to sack the quarterback.
It's so fun. I mean, yeah, I could go on and on. Like, I just laugh because, you know, whether Micah realized it or, you know, somebody was obviously yelling at him to keep running. And that's the funny thing is I was like, oh, crap, like, what a play by Micah Parsons. And, like, you know, I look down at my computer to look at, like, to write a note down. And when I look up, he's running for a touchdown. Like, I didn't even realize the ball was still live. So good on him. But yeah, man, I mean, he chased Fields out of the pocket. Like, his pressure coming off the left side is what forced Fields to step up and bail. Micah's on the 10 when he throws it to Montgomery. So he hauls from the 10. Well, first, I mean, he came from like the 15, so he goes 6 yards into the backfield. Then he runs from the 10 to the 36 to get the ball. Then he gets back to the end zone. So, yeah, it's just incredible. Like, what a hustle play. And, yeah, he got his steps in on that play.
All right, so Zeke didn't play, nursing that knee. You'd have to almost shoot him to keep him out, but he didn't play. And then, of course, Tony Pollard goes off. So how much has that fed the Tony Pollard should get all the carries talk?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's everywhere. We did it on TV today. I know it's been a lot of people's radio segments. It's all over Twitter. And, like, I mean, I understand it. Like, you can't, for anybody that was hiding behind anything before, like, there's really no justification that Zeke is the better back at this point other than the size of his contract. And I maintain, I'll keep saying it, and it matters less and less. Like, Zeke's pass pro and all that stuff, it is valuable, but not compared to the value that Tony Pollard's explosiveness brings to this offense. Like, you will gladly trade in a lesser pass protector for a guy that has a chance to go to the house every time he touches the ball, and seemingly does. Like, I feel like every time Tony's gotten 10 or more carries, he's had that type of game-changing explosive run, whether it was the one against the Rams. He obviously did it yesterday. He did it against the Giants. Yeah. So I don't know how you argue it. Now, I will say the one thing that keeps me, I don't feel like I have a strong take about this, because you're talking about running backs. Like, you know, people make it sound like Tony's getting 4 carries a game and Zeke is just eating up this crazy share of carries. It's really not true. The average is like 16 to 10 right now, which you would, I think, you know, it's time for that to get a little more even. Like, it's time for, you know, maybe, all right, so that's 26 carries. Maybe you'd like to see it be 14 to 12 in favor of Tony or something like that. But I don't think you need to reinvent the wheel, because that's the nature of the position. It helps to have 2. We've seen some really good offenses utilize 2 in the past. I think a lot of people keep bringing up Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara when Kamara first got to the Saints. And yeah, that sounds wonderful to me. I don't really see why you have to choose between the 2.
David, the trade deadline's coming up. Just so you can throw water on any Cowboys fans' hopes, do you think that, and again, to do an Amari Cooper deal, they would seemingly to me to have to be in the position that they were at that time to make that deal, and a guy like that would have to be available. One of those things is not going to be true because they're 6-2 heading into the bye, and the other one is maybe true, but maybe not, because who's out there that could change this team like Amari Cooper could?
Yeah, and I mean, the situation's a lot less dire than it was with Amari Cooper too. I mean, they did that deal to save their season. That's obviously not the case here. But look, if I had to bet today, I doubt anything happens. But I do think the Cowboys are more interested than they might have you believe. Like, I don't think they're just naive to the idea that their receiver core is kind of a mess. Like, it's nowhere near as good as it could be. I saw Jerry said yesterday that James Washington will eventually be back from his foot injury. I don't know if that really gets you super excited based on what we know about his body of work. I don't think you need to do an Amari Cooper deal, but I would try to do something. Like, all across the league, you hear chatter, and it's like teams are more willing to do deals than ever before. Like, we've already had like 16 trades, that's up to today with the Roquan Smith to Baltimore deal. Like, there's been 16 or 17 trades. There used to only be like a handful in a given year. So teams definitely recognize the value of this. And you think about some names, like, again, no, not Amari Cooper, but like Elijah Moore, the former second-round pick up at the Jets. He's clearly unhappy with his situation. The Steelers lost again. They're 2-6. People talk about Chase Claypool maybe being available because they don't know if they want to pay him. Jerry Jeudy seems a little far-fetched to me, but I've heard that name as well. So, like, there's definitely options, and there's definitely guys you could get that wouldn't cost you a first-round pick. I would do it if I were them, but I lean toward thinking that they probably won't.
David, every team in the NFC East, even the Commanders, with a couple of wins, including the Bears, and then yesterday they won again, are 4-4 or better. How much has it flipped to the NFC East? I'm not saying Washington's a contender, but how much has that changed in just the last couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. Like, it's amazing what a difference it makes when the lesser teams pull their weight, I guess, because, like, if you think about it, going back to, going back to when Dak got here, like, the Eagles have been reliably good and the Cowboys have been reliably good. Like, the Eagles had the one bad year where they blew everything up, and consequently that was the year the Cowboys were also terrible because Dak got hurt. And that was really when the peak of the NFC East ridicule was happening. 2020, all four teams were terrible. Washington got into the playoffs basically by default because there was nobody else to win it. But now, like, again, like, the Giants have been one of the worst teams in the league over the last 6 years. So, like, going from one of the worst teams in the league to having one of the better records in the division. And then, yeah, I don't think the Commanders are a great team, but to, like, pull out of the nosedive that they were in, they've won 3 straight games. So it's funny, like, the top of the division, oh, look, it's the Eagles and the Cowboys. You've kind of gotten used to that, but it does wonders for the perception of your division if the other two teams are at least decent, let alone good, which, I don't really believe in the Giants. But they are clearly a good enough team to, like, beat damn near anybody. I mean, 6-2 speaks for itself, even if it's not the most impressive 6-2 in NFL history. So, yeah, I mean, the AFC East and the NFC East, ironically, the AFC East doesn't have any losing teams either. And, like, that division was thought of as a joke for forever. It was New England and 3 ugly ducklings. And now you've got the best team in the league and nobody else has a losing record. So, it's funny to see that script kind of get flipped.
The NFC East is also now the poster child of look how much easier football gets when Carson Wentz isn't taking snaps too. Because Taylor Heineke the last couple of weeks, I mean,
dude,
it's just better.
It's crazy. Like, so, by the end of Wentz's tenure, obviously, like, they loved him when things were going well, but by the end of his time in Philly, they couldn't wait to get him out of there. Then he goes to the Colts, and, like, not only could they not wait to get him out of there, but then everybody threw him under the bus on his way out of town. And then Washington, his head coach, like, directly criticizes him, and then he goes to the bench when he gets hurt, and the team has totally responded, and they've won 3 straight games, and, they've had heroics at the last minute. And, yeah, like, I've never met Carson Wentz, but damn, man, like, that feels like an indictment to me.
Yeah, for a guy that won almost, well, he was the Rookie of the Year, and I thought about as an MVP his first year, and look where he's been, and yet people keep throwing money at him. Washington traded for him. It's nuts. David, thank you very much. Cowboys have a bye week, then at Green Bay, which right now they're a mess. And then, of course, they play in Minnesota, which will be interesting. The Vikings are pretty good. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
David Hellman, Fox Sports, with us on 365 Sports. All right, let's kind of go through a couple of notes. And these are stories. Did Lane Kiffin thoughts and comments about Jimbo Fisher when asked about dressing up for Halloween?
We're gonna address that in the top five a little bit. But I will say this: I used to kind of get miffed about Lane Kiffin, but I don't anymore. He says what he says, and he wasn't wrong. Did he say anything about A&M that wasn't true? No. And Jimbo, to him, violated kind of the unspoken rule of don't criticize other people. And he and Nick Saban are, I don't know what they are, but they work together, and he didn't like that. Although I will say this, like Lane can say, like, yeah, we ran for 390 against a bunch of 5-stars. If A&M came calling with that same money, he would go do exactly what Jimbo's doing.
Yeah, no, he would. That's another loss for A&M as they move on. I think they have, Florida coming up this week. Georgia could be without their leading pass rusher, Nolan Smith, for the game against Tennessee because of a shoulder injury. Kirby Smart telling reporters that today. Florida dismissed Brenton Cox Jr. from the team on what Billy Napier, for what he called moving on and cumulative effects. In other words, he's been not with one incident, but has had multiple incidents. He began his career at Georgia before transferring to Florida.
I don't think Georgia fought on the way out the door either. From what I've been reading, I think it was just one of those things that they took a chance on him because he was he's a Georgia guy coming to Florida, but certainly didn't work out.
No, it did not. So those are a couple of the notes. The Baylor game with Kansas State that was released, it's going to be a 6 o'clock game. Baylor fans have been wanting a later game. Well, you got 6 o'clock Kansas State a week from Saturday, Oklahoma 2 o'clock in Norman. Garrett, do you have the video of the security guard? Now, I think this is Tennessee, and I think I can let the crowd noise. So this is like a little skit with the cheerleaders of Tennessee and a security guard.
When the security guard is in the way.
I can see none of us doing that.
And in no way is that the real security guard.
No, it's a skit. That's what I was saying. It was a skit.
Way. Yeah,
ended up being a skit.
Somebody asked if that was set up or not.
Yeah, no.
Are people, seriously,
no, but
is that really a question? No. Is that a real question?
What I'm saying is it's not like that was the security guard. They said, hey, you think it would be funny? Can you do this? No, that probably something that happened to them a week before, and they said, hey, let's get a guy who knows how to dance out here.
Well, no, it's very clearly set up. I'm saying there's somebody that actually asked the question. Like, no, he just knew the whole choreography to the dance, and just the timing was great. But, that's fun. That's part of that great Tennessee atmosphere that they have. I do have a question, though. I'm not on TikTok. What is this voice that's on who is this person?
It's just the robot TikTok voice.
Yeah, I constantly
it's like
hear
Siri.
So, yeah. Okay. Well, I've been wondering. That's been driving me insane. Of what is this generic voice that I hear over every TikTok video, and how does that work? And so now you've answered it's basically a Siri voice.
Siri, Alexa, TikTok.
I have yet to figure out why people think that voice is so funny.
I don't. That's what part of why I'm asking. I don't get the appeal of it.
I get that it's there, but
Okay. I didn't even realize it was a fake voice. That's how much I was paying attention to it. I did. Yeah, I guess I've
just heard it so much now. I'm just like, is that a person? Is that a robot? Because it sounds very robotic. You've answered my question. Thank you.
Couple of notes in the top 25. Liberty has moved into the top 25. Kentucky, Cincinnati, and South Carolina all dropped. Two of the SEC of the three. Cincinnati, or future Big 12 team. Cincinnati and South Carolina dropped out of the coaches poll. Ole Miss moved up a tick or two. Kansas State 13th and 14th. Oklahoma State 18th in each poll. Tulane moved up to 19 in the AP poll. UCF has entered the poll. So a future team, Cincinnati out, a future team, UCF is in.
Well, because they beat them. UCF beat Cincinnati. And, yeah, Cincinnati just kind of let's face it, they've been held up on toothpicks, basically, as far as, like, their strength compared to last year. There's no Desmond Ridder or for that matter, Sauce Gardner, like, you go on and on. That was a special team last year, and I think them being kind of held up where they were was as much just hope that they would, Luke Fickell would get it all together and they just stay the course ultimately. But Ben Bryant's not Desmond Ridder, and they're not that team last year. They're still a good team, but it wasn't a shock to see UCF take them down the other night despite plenty of opportunities. I mean, score right at the end of the game and then just give up like 4 plays, just boom, touchdown. That was really disappointing to see for the Bearcats, but a good win for the Knights, no doubt. And, yeah, good for Gus Malzahn. I mean, that wasn't always the calmest waters, as far as their trajectory goes. I think they kind of got a slow start a little bit. So, yeah, it'd be in the top 25 at this point, so great for them.
And the king of Orlando right now is Mikey Keene. Look, he won the bowl game for him last year over Florida when Dylan Gabriel was out. And then now John Rice Plumlee goes out after the first half. Yep. Mikey Keene came in and played great in that second half. So
Kate Callahan, the Siri of our generation, reveals herself as the voice of TikTok.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry, Kate. I'm
hearing
your voice already.
Powers TikTok's text-to-speech function is disembodied no more. She's a radio host up in Ontario. Has revealed herself as the so-called voice of TikTok.
That would explain, like, when she says a boot.
Yeah,
okay.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, Justin R. just told me this, and us on the chat room. Gary Bohannon just announced that he will be back at USF next year to play quarterback for the Bulls, and that is great news. Yep. Duncanville's 6A boys state championship basketball team, led by, golly, I just lost his name, tremendous player, Black. He's now at Arkansas, has had the championship stripped by the UIL Executive Committee, Anthony Black. His father played at Baylor, stripped because he was ineligible, had moved from one school district to another. The UIL had told him that. The district executive committee had told him that. They said, the hell with it. We're going to run the table. They won the state championship. I had a UIL executive they cover and they run Texas high school sports tell me back in the spring, they may win the state championship. Whatever the final result will not be the final official result in the history books.
So does anybody get the title? Does the runner-up get the title?
I would think it would be, when Carter forfeited their 88 title.
Because if not, that's even more
Converse
BS on
Judson
Duncanville's
was
part.
given the title.
Yeah.
And who they beat for the state championship. Usually, like, for example, 04 USC, I think is just vacant. Or vacated, I think is what the message.
So they just knew the entire time they would get stripped, and they did it anyways.
From one of the district athletic directors, they told me it was basically just and I like Duncanville's Reggie Samples. I love the guy as a football coach, but this was one of those just middle finger to the way that it was run, and we're going to just run the title, and you could take it away from us later on. So.
Yep, well, they did. So hope that was all worth it to go on a whole championship run, to have it stripped away knowing that was going to probably happen. I don't see the point, quite frankly, but I'm sure there was some reason for it. But it just seems like a massive waste of time for a lot of different people, and a bit of a disservice to the teams that they beat along the way.
That was Jack McKenzie, who proved he will never run the hurdles, running through the studio, making too much noise.
Guess what? He also knows exactly where that wood is because he's the guy who put it there.
That's exactly right. When we come back, Paul Catalina's Top 5.
During Ram Power Days at Allen Samuels, our great selection of new cars and trucks come with amazing deals and competitive financing that makes you ask, why shop anywhere else? The new 2022 Ram trucks are designed to be durable, functional, and stylish. These legendary, award-winning trucks give you that first-class feel, luxurious leather trim seating options, exceptional legroom and storage, plus surround view camera options you'd expect from a premium truck. Come see our selection today or browse online at allensamuelsdcj.com.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like our free First mobile app, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. That's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street behind the bank.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
After my first car accident, I feared the biggest damage would be to my wallet. I expected a mountain of bills and a long, drawn-out process. But my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent was there when I needed her and helped me get back on my feet and in my car in no time. Instead of a hassle, I got reassurance and a quick recovery.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:55.
Top 5 college football coach costume suggestions. Listen, just because I despise this fake holiday and everything about it doesn't mean that I won't do a Halloween-themed top 5.
Like, I can kind of understand the parade thing, sort of, kind of, but I really don't understand the hatred for Halloween.
I don't like people asking me to be involved in it. I can do every single thing. I don't feel the need to dress up in a costume. I can get candy any night of the year. I don't care for people I don't know coming to my door. It's everything I don't like about America.
You're going to love having a kid when you have to do all this, dress it up and do all that.
Yeah.
Get ready for it, buddy, because the most fun part's coming.
Like, maybe not. So we'll see. I don't know.
Craig, what was your
first.
favorite Halloween costume?
I mean, it's just not that deep to me. I don't even. I'd have to sit here and think about it. I mean, it's not like my favorite holiday ever, but I mean, I have no issue with it whatsoever.
Yeah.
I think it's cool. I'm just kind of outgrown it, and
that's my problem with it. There it is. I outgrew it when I was 10, and then in my adult life, people try to like drag me back into it.
Okay, you did not outgrow it at 10.
Oh yeah, I didn't.
You didn't eat any candy.
That was the last year I went trick or treating.
You didn't accept any Halloween candy that others brought. You didn't eat that.
I mean, look at me. Yes, I eat candy, but I eat candy all the time. I mean, like, I don't, if somebody's going to give me candy, I'm not going to say no. I mean, but it's just, I don't like being forced into pretending like this is some sort of day I should give a crap about. Like, that's what bothers me.
For all you who are out watching us and you have kids, you're about to go trick-or-treating, it's a wonderful night.
When people are like 50 years old, like, what are you dressing up for Halloween? Like, an adult. Like, that's what I'm doing.
Because you didn't when you were 35, right?
I didn't. I mean, like, yeah,
Okay.
I've drifted over Halloween
All right.
like one time.
We are so late right now.
And since I was 10, I'm not for. So, but I will suggest, because do as I do, or do as I say, not as I do. But number 5, Joey Maguire should go as a calf. Why a calf, you say? Well, he showed up to that game as a Cowboy, but he got roped, guys.
Ooh.
So,
Yeah, he did,
and I
huh?
say this loving Joey Maguire, but I saw the thing of the cowboy hat and the boots and all that, and Baylor roped him pretty good. So.
Yeah, Baylor spoiled the party. There's no doubt about that. A lot of talk about the atmosphere and Mahomes and sellout, blackout, all that stuff, and they negated every single one of those advantages within the first quarter of that game, basically. I mean, it was only 3-0 after the first frame, but then they popped it in the second, and then the third, got close again, and then the fourth, 21-0 in the fourth quarter. I mean, they sent fans home early, and that was not expected on my end at all to be that in control as they were for most of that game. It was really impressive. And now Tech's got to figure out what they're doing at quarterback. I mean, what exactly?
They got to stop. Look, Baron Morton.
Yeah,
let it ride
Baron
with
Morton.
him.
Just let him play.
Ride
and,
with it.
I don't think that Joey and them were being intentionally like doing a disservice to anybody, but like that was a really tough spot to put Tyler Shuck in. That Donovan Smith was kind of an awkward spot. I mean, I could kind of see it with him because he's so different than Morton.
And look, Morton was all over the zone. I mean, if he was a pitcher, he would have gotten pulled in the fifth inning.
He's not true. He's a freshman, though.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got to get experience somehow or another. So yeah, that was just a very weird handling, and I don't know if it was more Kitley's doing or whatever. But they gotta shore that up a little bit, and they'll be fine. That was a tough pill to swallow, but they'll be fine.
Was Donovan Smith's first pass and Shuck's first pass intercepted?
Yeah, Shucks was.
Yeah.
I think Smith's was like his second, maybe, or maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe it was both of their first passes.
Their first pass on both of them. Number 4, Mike Gundy. He needs to dress up as a doctor because his team needs it. They are banged up. They are. I mean, 48-0. A lot of injuries. Maybe you could be a different kinds of doctors. You also be a psychiatrist. They might need a mental boost as well. That is something that no one. Not even Kansas State. I'm sure Kansas State would be over like, how did this happen? Like, what is going on over here? Nobody even saw that coming on Saturday.
No, I didn't. That was again. That's taking your soul, and I enjoyed again. I listened to Mike Gundy, not all of it this time, but I listened to him. He admitted that he, as Craig said, they went about some things differently last week, and he'll never do it again.
Yeah. They got smashed. I mean, that was unbelievable to see K-State dominate the way that they did. And yeah, I don't know if he wants to play a doctor. Probably needs to go to the doctor and get some of that, off his chest. Get to the mental doctor and get some help, or maybe physically serious. Like they do have some physical things going on. So yeah, doctor's kind of fitting for Oklahoma State.
Yeah,
right
and
now.
if Jalen Daniels comes back for Kansas this week, they're kind of catching Oklahoma State at the right time to maybe finally get that 6th win. Number 3, Dave Aranda, Grasshopper from Kung Fu. First of all, the look from David Carradine and Dave Aranda is pretty much dead on already, so he doesn't have to do a whole lot of work on this costume. It's pretty cost-effective. You just have to buy, kind of a cloak or whatever they wear in Kung Fu.
But don't give him candy corn.
Oh, no, don't give him candy corn.
Yeah,
but
you don't like it.
Smooth, again, what was Kung Fu? He was like this all the time, right? He was easy. Then as he rode through the West solving problems, his steady nature.
Paxton said Dave Aranda, Ming from Flash Gordon.
Well, no, Ming's evil. I mean, yeah, it doesn't fit. I mean, I guess it's a costume, but yeah. I mean, yes, I could see that too. But I like David Carradine here a lot better.
No, yeah, he's definitely got some of those types of characteristics for sure. Very, very Zen. Yeah, I guess the word that would definitely work for Dave Aranda. But yeah, I could see this one.
Yeah. Number 2, just because he wanted to, Lane Kiffin as the Joker. He said maybe he's got a Joker costume for me, but it fits Lane Kiffin's personality in that he is an agent of verbal chaos, and he loves to kind of throw those out there.
Didn't he say he should dress up like the Joker?
Because the Jimbo had a costume for him.
No, the reason why he said that is because Jimbo called him a clown.
Yeah. But, yeah, look, Joker, depending on what side of the argument you're on, and hopefully you're on Batman's, but still is the most effective clown in the history of clowns. Yeah. he gets things done. It's chaos, but Lane likes that, though. Lane likes to create that chaos, and Lane likes to say things that bother you, just like the Joker does. So it's a very appropriate, and I like that he took that to the next level, but I do think it's a very fitting costume for him if he was going to.
Yeah, he's definitely an agent of chaos. I won't argue that. If he was going to be a clown, he would probably be the Joker. Yep.
Yeah. And number 1, Jimbo Fisher needs to go as Nick Saban because he needs to do things like Nick Saban did. Instead of being mad at Nick Saban for saying something about him, maybe he should copy, because he did that early on. At FSU, he was trying to copy Saban beat for beat. And then somewhere along the way, he thought, no, I'm smarter than this guy. I'll do it different. No. You got to be the protege to the greatest college football coach ever. He showed you how to do it. And then when you were doing it that way, other than calling the plays at FSU, it worked out for you. And then now you've stopped as you've gotten to the SEC. Doesn't make sense. So he needs to go as Nick Saban.
I mean, Nick Saban works. He could also go as younger Jimbo Fisher because that guy actually could coach and had a little something to him. But he needs a makeover, that's for sure. And if only it was so simple as like putting on a mask and just acting accordingly. A&M, they fight, man. You got to credit like to the guys they have. They fight. It's just not enough though, and it's just overall, it's just not enough.
When he said in the press conference a couple weeks ago, we have a good system. Our guys aren't just getting it. I'm watching these games, and I'm like, I don't think your guys are the problem, Jimbo.
I don't think they are.
It's clearly you. Yeah. I mean, you've got them 31-28 fighting to the end, but you're not calling. And by the way, Connor Wegman, by the way, he looked pretty good.
He did.
He short arms a few, and that's probably just from the fact he hasn't played enough. He seems like he's got a little bit to him, but they need an infusion of something. And this time is running out. Florida next, and then they, I think, have what do they have? LSU.
Both
still.
Those teams need to win badly.
Yeah.
And I think I'd actually lean A&M there. But yeah, both those teams could really use a W. So a lot of different ways you could go with these guys, but I think that's pretty fitting that Jimbo and Nick Saban there.
Yeah, I got to stop it because I'm getting ready to have an alarm go off. All right, now TCU, you took care of business. Congratulations. Kansas State, wow. Oklahoma, turning the corner. Baylor, that's what we expected. At least that's the DNA we expected. Can you continue that? Baylor, Oklahoma play. Kansas State plays Texas coming up this weekend. All right? Anything else, Paul? Great stuff on the top 5. Go home and have that doorbell ring. Craig, thank you so much. We appreciate you. Emery, Levi, Jack, Jacob, and Garrett, the full throttle of the Motherlode behind the scenes. 10:30 tonight, Sports Tonight on the CW channel. We'll have Oklahoma-Baylor pregame coming up Saturday. And
big
much
1-2.
more on the big 1-2 is coming up. They're about to do that as well. This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Thanks to all of our great sponsors and to you. Good night.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills.